Chapter 1384. Everyone present was smart, and they understood Duan Suqing's intention after thinking for a while. With Gong Xiaoxi, the person with real power in the Burning Sky sect, taking the lead in calling Xiaoqin exalted immortal master, in addition to the long-standing grievances between the two sects, Ying Taichi naturally pushed this case onto the Burning Sky sect. Looking back, wasn't the Gold Core expert that the Zhao clan sent to deal with the Qin clan also from the secluded forest sect? Now, it had also become the evidence of the Burning Sky sect's vendetta. After Qin Shengling understood the reason, his face turned pale. Wasn't this just finding trouble for the Burning Sky sect? The Qin clan was just a small clan in a small town. The previous incidents were all coincidental. If such a big basin of dirty water was poured onto the Burning Sky sect, wouldn't the Burning Sky sect tear him apart? Don't worry, Patriarch Qin. We, the Burning Sky faction, originally had a grudge with the secluded forest sect. Even if you put this matter on our heads, we won't care about anything. Duan Suqing turned his head and saw Qin Shengling's pale face. He shook his head, smiled and comforted him. Duan Suqing shook his head and comforted Qin Shengling with a smile. Don't worry, Qin clan leader. Our Burning Sky sect and the secluded forest sect have always been at odds. Even if you push this matter onto us, we won't care about it. Now that a treasure like exalted immortal Xiao had fallen in front of him, who would care whether the Qin clan or the Burning Sky sect was the scapegoat? If he could bring Xiao Chang back to the sect, Duan Suqing could not wait to thank Qin Shengling a few more times. Then I will thank sect leader Duan for his understanding. Qin Shengling heaved a sigh of relief, and his expression eased up a lot. He turned his head and said to Xiaoqin, since the Qin clan has nothing to worry about, then exalted immortal Xiao can rest assured and go to the Burning Sky sect to play for a few days. I have Elder Gong here, so there will definitely be no problem. In that case, I can't reject sect leader Duan's good intentions anymore. I will go to your sect for a visit. Without any worries in his heart, Xiaoqin readily agreed. Although Xiaoqin couldn't leave previously because he was worried about the Qin clan, in his heart, he was still quite willing to go to the Burning Sky sect as a guest. It wasn't because of the sect master's invitation, but because Xiaoqin had his own plans. According to Xiaoqin's conjecture, the Burning Sky faction's influence in the Luxian prefecture was not small. Currently, the Qin clan's search was fruitless. If he went to the Burning Sky faction and asked them to send people to search around, the search area would be larger and the search power would be stronger. Perhaps they would be able to find the whereabouts of Qing Menjing and the others. As for treating Gong Xiaoxi's father, although Xiaoqin wasn't very confident, he wasn't worried. If he couldn't do it himself, he could ask the Elder Heaven Ancestor. He would definitely know how to solve it. Great. Burning Sky sect sincerely welcomes Upper Immortal Zhao's presence. Duan Suqing said repeatedly. He and Xian Zhaoxin looked at each other, their eyes filled with unconcealable joy. Xiaoqin stretched, turned to Gong Xiaoxi and said, Disciple, I'll leave the Qin clan to you. If you encounter any experts that you can't defeat, don't force yourself. Send a message to Sect Master Duan, and I'll come back in a minute to kill them. No problem. Upper Immortal Master, don't worry and go have fun. Leave this place to me. Gong Xiaoxi promised, patting his chest. He naturally hoped that Xiaoqin could go to the Burning Sky faction. In this way, not only would there be hope for his father's injury to recover, but it would also improve the faction's prestige. It was simply killing two birds with one stone. Because it was late that day, Xiaoqin didn't want to travel at night with Hongzhu, so he arranged for everyone to stay in the Qin clan for the night. It was rare for the Qin clan to welcome so many upper immortals, so Qin Shengling naturally did his best to arrange the banquet and the accommodation. The guests and the host were all happy and the atmosphere was very warm. The next morning, Sect Master Duan and Deputy Sect Master Xian took Xiaoqin and Hongzhu with them and set off for Luxian Prefecture. Because Hongzhu's strength wasn't enough to run at high speed for a long time, the speed at which they returned was much slower than when Duan Suqing and the others came. After a long journey of several hours, Xiaoqin and the others finally arrived at the Burning Sky faction in the eastern suburbs of Luxian Prefecture. Duan Suqing had already made the arrangements through a sound-transmitting talisman the night before. Therefore, when Xiaoqin and the others arrived in front of the faction, all the disciples and upper echelons of the Burning Sky faction were already gathered outside the main entrance in an orderly manner, solemnly welcoming the arrival of Xiaoqin. It was evident that they attached great importance to this upper immortal. Although Xiaoqin hadn't experienced such a spectacle, he wasn't afraid. He simply said a few words at the main entrance of the faction, which attracted bursts of laughter. There were also many young female disciples who directly ignored Hongzhu's existence, and brazenly threw flirtatious glances at Xiao Chen. After Xiao Chen's speech came to an end, Duan Suqing led Xiao Chen and Hong Zhu into the Burning Sky faction, chatting cheerfully and wittily. After settling down their accommodations, Duan Suqing specially booked the most high-class restaurant in Lucian Prefecture and held an extremely grand banquet to welcome the arrival of Xiao Chen and Hong Zhu. This time, Duan Suqing spent a great deal of capital. He specially sent out invitations to many reputable clans and merchants in Lucian Prefecture, and arranged for them to eat banquets for 3 consecutive days, just to announce the arrival of the Upper Immortal. He also faintly ridiculed the silent Tranquil Forest sect. As the crowd ate and drank to their heart's content, they naturally conversed with each other and expressed their own opinions. The opinion that the Tranquil Forest sect was on the verge of collapse quickly spread. Everyone unanimously agreed that from now on, Lucian Prefecture would belong to the Burning Sky faction. There were people who were proud, and naturally there were people who were disappointed. At this moment, the Burning Sky faction's morale was soaring, and its reputation was illustrious. At the same time, the spies that the Tranquil Forest sect had planted in the Burning Sky faction had naturally sent the news of the Upper Immortal Zhao's arrival back to the Tranquil Forest sect, who had been keeping a low profile. After receiving the news, sect leader Guan could not help but be furious. He smashed the teacup in his hand fiercely. This piece of news made him even more certain that this matter was caused by the Burning Sky faction from the very beginning. Motherf **Ker. That surname Duan is simply too arrogant. Isn't he openly making things difficult for the Tranquil Forest sect? Who gave him such great courage? In the conference hall of the Tranquil Forest sect, sect leader Guan was slamming the table with an ashen face and cursing loudly. Sitting on the seat above sect leader Guan was a dispirited Ying Taichi. At this moment he also sighed helplessly and did not speak. The few chairs behind him were a group of elders from the Tranquil Forest sect. Hearing the roar of sect leader Guan, their expressions were solemn. They looked at each other and did not dare to express any opinions. Similarly, they chose to remain silent. If Ying Taichi was still at his peak, and his cultivation had not been destroyed, then the Tranquil Forest sect could immediately retaliate. However, at present, the strongest person had already been defeated. Therefore, the Burning Sky faction was actually not wrong in saying that their strength had indeed far surpassed that of the Tranquil Forest sect. Chapter 1385. In such a situation, the elders of the secluded forest sect could only lower their heads, lest they say something they shouldn't and get themselves into trouble. Sect leader Guan looked at the group of elders who were originally in high spirits but now hung their heads like frosted eggplants, and he couldn't help but feel angry. Just as he was about to open his mouth to scold them again, Ying Taichi waved his hand and said, "Forget it, no matter how hard you scold them, it won't help anything. If word of it gets out, the Burning Sky faction will only laugh at you. Save your energy." "Martial uncle, I know you're right, I just feel uncomfortable holding my breath." Sect leader Guan sat down dispiritedly, and his face turned gloomy. "Cough cough, there's nothing I can do." Ying Taichi coughed a few times and asked with difficulty while breathing heavily, "I'm afraid I can't hold on for much longer. Don't worry about the Burning Sky sect for now. I asked you to contact Director Liu of the Dada Immortal Cultivators Chamber of Commerce. Did he reply?" Ever since Ying Taichi's Dantian had been destroyed by Xiao Chen, he felt that his body was deteriorating day by day. Although it was said that immortal cultivators had a very long lifespan, and it was not easy for them to get sick, and their internal organs aged very slowly, that was all due to the effect of essence. Once the Dantian was destroyed, the cultivation of the cultivator would be completely abolished, and they would not be able to gather vitality in their body again. Therefore there was not much difference between them and ordinary people, and they would age and get sick. "Martial Uncle Ying, I wanted to ask you before, why are you looking for Director Liu?" Sect leader Guan frowned and couldn't help but ask. "Xiao Guan, do you still remember my master?" Ying Taichi lowered his head and thought for a while, then said calmly, "Many years ago he left the secluded forest sect and traveled the world to train. He only contacted our sect through letters in the first few years, and then there was no news from him. I thought that since the Dada Immortal Cultivators Chamber of Commerce is so powerful, we might as well ask them to help us find my master." There were actually 2 reasons why Ying Taichi wanted to find his master. Firstly, if he could appear, he would definitely be able to beat the crap out of Xiao Chang, who had appeared out of nowhere. Secondly, it was related to himself. If he could find his master, maybe his damaged Dantian could be healed. But the immortal cultivation world is so big. He has been gone for so many years and there is no news at all. No matter how powerful the Dada Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce is, They may not be able to find him, right? Sect leader Guan shook his head in disagreement. In fact, sect leader Guan had something else to say. Perhaps that old man had already died in some corner of the world of cultivators. If that was the case, even the gods of the highest firmament would not be able to find him. Little Guan, what happened to you? Ing Taichi's face darkened and he said seriously, how can we know if we don't try? Now that our tranquil forest sect has fallen to such a state, if we don't think of a way to save ourselves, we'll soon become an unknown small sect. Why are you still making excuses? What are you thinking? It's not that I don't want to find him. It's just that the Deda Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce has gone too far. Sect leader Guan's anger flared up again when he mentioned this matter. He slammed the table and roared. Seeing that the few elders and Marshal Uncle Ing were looking at him in surprise, sect leader Guan said angrily, that kid was also invited to the banquet by the Burning Sky faction. The point is that not only did he go to eat their meal, he even criticized me after eating. Criticized you? Ing Taichi frowned slightly. He could not be bothered to mention his own purpose. He changed the topic and asked, he went to eat his meal. We didn't stop him. Why would he criticize you? It's because of the previous matter. Sect leader Guan complained bitterly. He said that it was because of our fight with the Burning Sky faction that indirectly caused Guan Waitsai's death, causing the success rate of cooperation with the Deda Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce to be lowered. Our reputation was also damaged because of this. He even said that he wanted to blacklist us in the industry. As it turned out, after Lu Huaishui finished attending the Burning Sky faction's banquet, he thought that he finally understood the truth of the entire matter. After returning, he first wrote a report to his superiors, explaining the ins and outs of the matter. In the report, Lu Huaishui determined that Guan Weikai was actually a victim of the personal grudge between the Burning Sky faction and the Tranquil Forest sect, and that Xiaoqin was also the force behind the Burning Sky faction's invitation. The Zhao family just happened to have an agreement with the Deda Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce and invited Guan Weikai to be their worshipper. After the report was submitted, it didn't take long for the instructions from the higher-ups to come down. Lu Huaishui immediately contacted sect leader Guan and conveyed the instructions to the secluded forest sect, telling them that Guan Waitsai's death was due to a private fight between the two sects, and that the Burning Sky sect had secretly invited an expert to kill him. The Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce would not be responsible for any breach of contract. At the same time, Lu Huaishui also pointed out that the Tranquil Forest sect might have violated one of the terms in the contract between the two parties, and was suspected of swindling spirit crystals. After that, the Deda Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce would conduct a further investigation. If the Tranquil Forest sect was indeed suspected of violating the rules and actively swindling spirit crystals, then the Chamber of Commerce would recover the 10,000 spirit crystals previously given, and reserve the right to pursue legal responsibility. I didn't expect it to be like this. A haze flashed across Ing Taichi's eyes. Recently there had been too much bad news and he felt a little mentally and physically exhausted. Sect leader Guan nodded helplessly and explained, now that Director Lu blamed the grudge between us and the Tranquil Forest sect for Guan Waitsai's death, not only did he speak harshly to our sect, he might even want to take back the 10,000 spirit crystals. That's why I feel that. I'm afraid it's not suitable for the Chamber of Commerce to help us find people anymore. It doesn't matter. If he wants those spirit crystals back, then we'll just give them to him. Ing Taichi thought for a while and made a decision. He said resolutely, as long as the Chamber of Commerce can find my master, everything will be easy to solve, and we can even give him another 10,000 spirit crystals. At worst, I'll let my master kill that Xiao Chong, and then let the Burning Sky faction compensate us for all our losses. Ing Taichi didn't care about the spirit crystals at all. From his point of view, the most important thing now was to find his master, and then let him find a way to repair his dantian, so that he could become an immortal cultivator again. Sect leader Guan frowned deeply and after a moment of silence he finally agreed, looks like we can only do this now. Then I'll go and contact Director Lu again. Although that fellow isn't very honest, he's still trustworthy when doing business, and the key thing is that he's a guy who only cares about profits. As long as we're willing to spend more spirit crystals, he'll definitely be willing to let the Chamber of Commerce help us find your master. Chapter 1386. Let's do that. Ing Taichi nodded his head and cautiously reminded, no matter what condition he proposes, you must agree to it immediately and unconditionally. As long as he can find my master, he will agree to any condition. Now, the secluded forest sect can only rely on finding my master to regain their position as the top sect in Lucian Prefecture. After sect leader Guan nodded in agreement, Ing Taichi gave a few instructions to the other elders, telling them to appease the disciples and wait for the news from the Chamber of Commerce of Immortal Cultivators. After everything was arranged, he stood up and returned to his room to rest. The 3-day banquet finally ended in a lively atmosphere. Xiao Qin had a rough understanding of the Burning Sky faction situation. The Burning Sky faction and the secluded forest sect had existed in the Lucian Prefecture for many years, and their feud had been going on for a long time. When the secluded forest sect's Ing Taichi's teacher was still around, the Burning Sky faction did not have any particularly powerful talents. Hence, they had been suppressed by the secluded forest sect. After that, Ing Taichi's master left the faction to wander. The secluded forest sect's strength immediately declined. In addition, a cultivation expert appeared in the Burning Sky faction. It was Gong Shaoxi's father, Gong Ruidong. Hence, the Burning Sky faction became the top sect in Lucian Prefecture. However, good times did not last long. Gong Ruidong accidentally went berserk during his cultivation and was seriously injured. He had no choice but to retreat to recuperate. The secluded forest sect immediately overtook its strength. Ing Taichi, who was initially suppressed, suddenly appeared and became the top expert of the secluded forest sect. The strength of the two factions fluctuated and neither was convinced of the other. Usually there would be conflicts. However, ever since Gong Ruidong from the Burning Sky faction was injured and went into seclusion, the secluded forest sect had the upper hand in most of the battles. Hence, the people of Lucian Prefecture were more inclined to believe that the secluded forest sect was the top sect in the prefecture. However, after a few days of banquets, everyone knew that Fan Forest sect had sent a mortal Xiao who easily defeated Ing Taichi. Hence, the Burning Sky faction quietly returned to its original position as the top sect. After the 3 days of banquets, the various clans and merchants in the Lucian Prefecture realized that the secluded forest sect had not made any moves. Instantly, they had their own ideas and started to re-evaluate the situation. Many of them who were quick to act had even approached the Burning Sky faction to express their goodwill, preparing to join the Burning Sky faction. After all, everyone hoped that they could have a powerful backer. Even though the Burning Sky faction had been so arrogant these few days, the secluded forest sect was still able to keep their composure. According to past experience, it was not that they disdained to make a move, but that their strength had indeed been greatly damaged, and they were no longer able to suppress the Burning Sky faction. One day after the banquet, Xiao Chen had nothing to do, so he asked someone to find Duan Suqing, intending to have him take him to see Gong Ruidong's injury. Sect leader Duan, I heard that Gong Shaoxi's father suffered from qi deviation and was injured. He has been recuperating in seclusion and hasn't recovered for a long time, right? Xiao Chen asked when he saw Duan Suqing enter the room. Yes, because at that time his qi deviation was more serious, and it wasn't easy to save his life. Therefore he has been recuperating step by step, and hasn't fully recovered yet. Duan Suqing nodded and answered honestly. Oh, since Gong Shaoxi is willing to give me face and serve as a high priest in the Qing clan without any fees, then I can't be too at ease. Xiao Chen smiled slightly and said, I'll do a little repayment on behalf of the Qing clan, and go treat his father's injury. I wonder if it's convenient for you to bring me over and introduce me to him? Of course. I can't ask for more. Duan Suqing's eyes brightened. How was this a little repayment? It was simply a great thing. Then you lead the way. We'll go and take a look now. Xiao Chen didn't delay and directly walked out of the room. Duan Suqing hurriedly ran in front of him to lead the way. I heard from Shaoxi that exalted immortal Zhao's objective in going to Swallow Forest Town seems to be to look for his missing companions? On the way to Gong Ruidong's place of seclusion, Duan Suqing, who was thinking of finding an opportunity to get close to immortal Zhao, asked with a smile. Yes. Unfortunately, the Qin clan has been searching for a long time, but there's still no news, Xiao Chen replied. He thought to himself, this is great. I don't need to say anything and you've taken the initiative to mention it. Duan Suqing couldn't wait to do Xiao Chen a favor, so he immediately followed up. If you don't mind, I can also ask my subordinates from the Burning Sky faction to help you inquire around. It can also be considered as a little bit of help. Xiao Chen nodded calmly and said casually, oh, that's fine too. After I cure Gong Ruidong's illness, I'll tell you the relevant information about my companions. Duan Suqing nodded repeatedly and was about to say a few words of flattery when Xiao Chen added, but according to my guess, it's very likely that they are not in Lucian Prefecture. Otherwise, with the liveliness of the banquet these days, they would definitely come after hearing the noise. So I guess they may have wandered to a small town nearby. I hope sect leader Duan can increase the search efforts and expand the scope of the search. Haha, exalted immortal Zhao's matter is our burning sky faction's matter. Even if you don't say it, I will definitely do so. Duan Suqing immediately patted his chest and guaranteed Xiao Qin. Then I'll thank sect leader Duan first. There's strength in numbers. I hope your search will be fruitful. Xiao Qin smiled and thanked him, finally feeling a little relieved. Exalted immortal Xiao is too polite. Duan Suqing thought for a moment and asked tentatively, but exalted immortal Xiao, there's actually a problem that I haven't figured out. Since your companions were inadvertently separated from you, why didn't they use the message-transmitting talisman to contact you? They should be able to contact you faster this way. It's like this. Previously, when we came out to train, we accidentally encountered a few powerful cultivators from an enemy sect, and then we started fighting. Xiao Chen's expression did not change as he explained, although I killed all of them in the chaotic battle, I accidentally got separated from my companions. Their luggage and voice transmission talismans are with me, which is why I couldn't contact them. In order not to expose his origin, Xiao Chen could only casually bluff. He was afraid that Duan Suqing would not believe him, so he added, in order to train ourselves, we didn't bring any spirit crystals with us. I don't think there's anywhere to buy message-transmitting talismans, so... Actually, Xiao Chen was thinking too much. After Duan Suqing heard the first part of his words, the corner of his mouth was already twitching. He was so shocked that he didn't care to listen to the second part of the explanation. In Duan Suqing's eyes, exalted immortal Zhao's cultivation was already incomparably heaven-defying. Even if he turned the entire Lucian County upside down, he probably wouldn't be able to find one. Chapter 1387. Most importantly, exalted immortal Xiao was actually able to kill all of them. Just how strong was the sect behind him? Exalted immortal Xiao, which sect did you and your companion come from? Duan Suqing took a deep breath and asked carefully. As for which sect I am from, it's not convenient for me to tell you. Seeing that Duan Suqing had been successfully intimidated by him and was trembling with fear, Xiao Chen found it a little funny. However, his expression did not change. He said indifferently, I believe that since you have been the sect leader for so long, you should know the rules better than me. There are some things that are not good for you to know too much. Yes. It's all my fault for talking too much. Please don't take offense, exalted deity Xiao. Duan Suqing shuddered and quickly squeezed out a smile, afraid that exalted immortal Xiao would be dissatisfied with him. Xiao Chen waved his hand and did not speak again. Fortunately, they had arrived at the place. Duan Suqing quickly stepped forward and gently knocked on the door. Who is it? A low and slightly hoarse male voice came from behind the door. Reporting to Grand Supreme Elder, I'm Duan Suqing. I've brought a guest to see you. Duan Suqing reported respectfully. Come in. After a while, a tired voice sounded from behind the door. After getting a response, Duan Suqing turned to Xiao Chen and said, Immortal Xiao, the highest elder is doing closed-door training inside. Please come with me. Pushing open the door and following Duan Suqing into the room, Xiao Chen saw a haggard old man at first glance. At this time, the old man was sitting on the bed with his eyes closed and seemed to be quietly adjusting his breathing. This person should be Gong Xiaoxi's father, Gong Ruidong. His facial features were somewhat similar to Gong Xiaoxi's, but there was a kind of dispirited and sickly expression between his brows. His complexion was also somewhat pale, without any color of blood. After both of them entered the room, Gong Ruidong slowly exhaled and opened her eyes. She looked at Xiao Chen and then turned to look at Duan Suqing. She asked seriously, What's going on? Reporting to Grand Elder, this is Xiaoxi's newly acknowledged master, Xiao Chang. This time he was specially invited to the Burning Sky faction as a guest. Duan Suqing bowed and very respectfully introduced Xiao Chen. Gong Ruidong sized up Xiao Chen again. His expression was even more gloomy, and his tone was somewhat unfriendly. And then? It's like this. This time we invited exalted immortal Xiao to come. On one hand, we hope that he can give some pointers to the disciples in the sect. On the other hand, we want to treat your injuries and let you recover as soon as possible. Only then did Duan Suqing explain the purpose of his visit. No need. Just as Duan Suqing's voice fell, Gong Ruidong's thick eyebrows furrowed into a ball, and she immediately refused. How could I not know what's going on with my own injuries? But... Duan Suqing was stunned. He still wanted to say a few words. Gong Ruidong waved his hand, pointed at Xiao Qin, looked at Duan Suqing and said in a deep voice, "Besides, you're already an expert of the nascent soul stage, right? Even you can't heal my injuries, so where did this little brat come from? You're really something. You were actually deceived by a little brat. Could it be that he drugged you?" Gong Ruidong didn't believe that Xiao Qin could cure him. The Burning Sky faction had already invited countless famous doctors in the Lucian prefecture to diagnose his injuries. He didn't know how many treasures and spirit crystals he had spent, but what was the result? They were all helpless. This brat looked so young. What could he do? He must be a swindler. But he didn't expect Duan Suqing to be deceived at such an old age. Looking at Gong Ruidong's righteous expression, Xiao Qin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He shook his head, squinted at him and teased, "So you know so much. Then why don't you go to heaven?" Originally, he wanted to treat his father's injuries for Gong Xiaoxi's sake. After all, it was just a small effort. He didn't expect that this person not only didn't care about it, but also questioned him. Hearing Xiao Qin's angry and teasing words, Duan Suqing's face stiffened. He couldn't afford to offend these two people. Helplessly, he could only say to Gong Ruidong with a bitter face, "This? Grand Supreme Elder, please listen to my explanation. Although this exalted immortal Xiao looks very young, his medical skills are quite exquisite. Moreover, he also helped Elder Xiaoxi." Unfortunately, before Duan Suqing could explain what Xiao Qin had done, he was ruthlessly interrupted by Gong Ruidong again. "Say no more. In short, I will never let him treat my injuries. You can leave. I'm going to continue my closed-door training." Gong Ruidong waved his hand decisively. He didn't want to say anything more. He closed his eyes and adjusted his qi circulation again. In fact, Gong Ruidong couldn't be blamed for being too arbitrary. Since he was injured, he had been in closed-door training all year round. He didn't know anything about what had happened in the outside world. As the pillar of the sect, he was usually arrogant. Therefore, at first glance, he concluded that a young boy like Xiao Qin didn't have any ability. Tut, it seems that this person has been in closed-door training for too long. His mind is a little muddled. Xiao Qin stretched and moved his muscles and bones. Then he said lightly, "Since he doesn't want me to treat him, there's no need for me to stay any longer. I'll leave first. When he wakes up, I'll come back." After he finished speaking, Xiao Qin lifted his feet and left the room. He didn't want to argue with such an old man. Moreover, this guy's thinking was too stubborn. It was useless to continue talking. Look, I was right. He ran away with a guilty conscience. Looking at the back of Xiao Qin, who turned and left, Gong Ruidong deliberately raised his voice and said loudly, "In the future, don't let this kind of swindler in again. Otherwise, people will think that our Burning Sky faction is easy to cheat. If it weren't for the fact that I'm paralyzed and can't move, I would have slapped him away." At this time, Xiao Qin hadn't gone far. Moreover, Gong Ruidong's voice was very loud. Naturally, he heard his sarcastic and abusive remarks. However, Xiao Qin didn't intend to lower himself to his level. Anyway, he was the one who proposed to help treat the illness. Since the other party refused to accept it, there was no need to say more. Grand Elder, you can't say that." Duan Suqing didn't have time to stop immortal Xiao. As soon as he turned around, he heard Gong Ruidong say such humiliating words. Cold sweat suddenly flowed down his back. Duan Suqing couldn't help but look back at Xiao Qin, who was gradually getting further and further away. He found that he wasn't angry because of this and was still walking leisurely with his hands behind his back. Only then did he quietly let out a sigh of relief. Chapter 1388. Why can't I say that? Gong Ruidong glared at him and cursed angrily, "This is the Burning Sky faction. It's not a gathering place for swindlers. You're really blinded by lard and you still want to speak up for that immature brat." Duan Suqing tried his best to explain, "Grand Elder, you don't know the situation, but Immortal Xiao helped Elder Xiaoxi to break through to the nascent soul stage not long ago, and he can be considered as a great benefactor of our Burning Sky faction. Xiaoxi has been in the Gold Core Peak stage for so long, and he's already about to break through to the nascent soul stage. He doesn't need that brat's help at all." Gong Ruidong snorted coldly from his nostrils, frowned and curled his lips. "I think he's purely here to deceive people. But that immortal Xiao crippled old Ing of the Tranquil Forest sect. That Ing Taichi has already reached the nascent soul stage level 3. Duan Suqing became more and more powerless as he tried to defend himself. "Did you see him cripple old Ing with your own eyes?" Gong Ruidong didn't wait for Duan Suqing to finish his words, and asked with a sneer. "I didn't see it." Duan Suqing choked and could only shake his head honestly, thinking, although I didn't see it with my own eyes, Gong Xiaoxi wouldn't lie, right? How could the Grand Elder not even believe his own son's words? Isn't that it? Do you believe in hearsay? Sure enough, Gong Ruidong still wasn't convinced, and with an expression of knowing that he was a liar, he loudly rebuked, maybe the Tranquil Forest sect deliberately made a show to deceive you, so that they could send that brat to the Burning Sky faction, and use the opportunity of treating my illness to harm me. You're really getting more and more muddle-headed. Staring at Duan Suqing, whose face was alternating between red and white, Gong Ruidong's heart was very dissatisfied, and he secretly wondered if it was time for someone else to be the sect leader. This guy was too unreliable and he fell for such a clumsy trick. No, I heard it from Xiaoxi. He also said. Duan Suqing wanted to explain in detail, but before he finished, Gong Ruidong said impatiently, don't talk about it anymore. Don't mention it again. Hurry up and go do your own things. As for that Xiao guy, find a way to get him out as soon as possible. I don't want to see him again. All right. The corner of Duan Suqing's mouth twitched. Duan Suqing helplessly and looked at Gong. Gong Ruidong didn't want to talk anymore. After leaving Gong Ruidong's room, Duan Suqing immediately contacted Gong Xiaoxi with a voice-transmitting talisman and told him the whole thing. Gong Gong Xiaoxi's ruo. Ti Gong, Ti Gong's rut he ti. Ti Gong 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 ti. Ti. Ti Gong Xiaoxi couldn't help but jump in fright when he found out that his father was very disrespectful to exalted immortal Xiao, determined that he was a swindler, and even wanted to chase him away. He thought to himself, my dear father, you're going to write off all of your son's contributions. Gong Xiaoxi, who was burning with anxiety, didn't even bother to pack his luggage. He immediately ran to the study room and gave a few simple instructions to Qin Shengling. Then he left the Qin clan and rushed towards the Burning Sky faction without stopping. Fortunately, Gong Xiaoxi had just broken through to the nascent soul stage, and his body was full of vitality. Running at full speed, he had already arrived at the Burning Sky sect when the sky turned dark. After entering the sect, Gong Xiaoxi asked about Xiao Chen's residence. He first ran to apologize to Xiao Chen, and then hurried to the place where Gong Ruidong was in seclusion. At this time, Gong Ruidong had just finished his dinner, and several disciples were helping him clean up the dishes. Seeing Gong Xiaoxi directly push the door open with a face full of anger, the disciples did not dare to say anything and hurriedly cleaned up the things and left. And? Why are you here? Gong Ruidong was about to adjust his breathing when he saw Gong Xiaoxi suddenly appear. He couldn't help but ask in surprise. Gong Xiaoxi strode to Gong Ruidong's bed and looked down at his father, who was half paralyzed. He said angrily, Father, how can you be so rude to Xiao Chen? I finally met such an awesome person and racked my brains to invite him to our sect as a guest. You actually want to chase him away and call him a liar? Brat, how can you talk to your father like that? Gong Ruidong didn't expect Gong Xiaoxi to get angry at him the moment he came in. He was a little angry and scolded, that brat is a liar. I've never seen such a young expert. He said he could help me heal my injuries. I don't believe it. Father, are you stupid? Gong Xiaoxi couldn't help but roll his eyes. With a pained expression he said, Exalted Immortal Xiao is a genuine cultivator expert. His strength is unfathomable. He can destroy the Burning Sky faction with a flick of his finger. What nonsense are you talking about? That yellow-haired brat is an expert? I think you've been fooled. Gong Ruidong saw that his son was still talking nonsense. He angrily slammed the table and scolded. How can Xiao Chen be a liar? I saw him cripple Old Ing with my own eyes. Gong Xiaoxi was anxious and argued with his father. You're so stupid. How do you know he's not putting on a show for you? Gong Ruidong still didn't believe it. He glanced at Gong Xiaoxi and said, Of course he's not putting on a show. He killed Guan Weikai from the Tranquil Forest sect before Old Ing went to him. If he was putting on a show, he didn't have to kill his own people, right? Gong Xiaoxi shouted angrily. Guan Weikai? You mean the relative of the sect leader of the Tranquil Forest sect? Is it a distant cousin or someone else? Gong Ruidong frowned and tried to recall. You seem to have heard of this name. That's him. Gong Xiaoxi hurriedly nodded and explained, Guan Weicai's strength is about level 6 or 7 of the Golden Core stage. As he was hired by a merchant group to work in Yanlin town, he offended the Qin family for some reason and was killed by exalted deity Xiao. That's why old Manning came out to seek an explanation. Gong Ruidong pondered for a while. If Guan Weikai was really killed, the possibility of it being a disguise was relatively small. After all, he was the relative of the sect leader. To put on such a big show in order to infiltrate the Burning Sky sect, the price seemed a little high. Then, when Guan Weikai was killed, were you there? Did you see it with your own eyes? After thinking for a long time, Gong Ruidong still had some doubts about the young man. I wasn't there when he died. But when Old Ing went to ask for an explanation, I was there. Gong Shaoxi stomped his feet. He shouted angrily. Chapter 1389. Gong Shaoxi was already helpless against this father of his, so he simply confessed everything. My scarlet flame pearl was destroyed by that old Ying's ice crystal. If it wasn't for exalted immortal Shao blocking the fatal blow for me, I wouldn't be able to stand here and talk to you today. As Gong Shaoxi spoke, he paced around the room like an impatient lion. He wanted to crack open his father's head to see what it was made of. Are you serious? That guy is that powerful? Gong Ruidong was still skeptical. That Xiao Chang looked like he was only in his teens or 20s. How could he cripple Ing Taichi, who was in the original infant stage? It's true, it's true. Everything I said is true. Gong Shaoxi was completely anxious. He directly revealed his original infant stage level 1 cultivation and said loudly, Father, look carefully. I have been in the golden core stage for so many years. If not for exalted deity Zhao's help, I definitely wouldn't have been able to break through to the original infant stage so easily. Weren't you already about to break through? Maybe a certain acupoint in your body suddenly opened up and you naturally broke through? It might not have been because of that guy's help that you succeeded. Gong Ruidong pouted and retorted with some dissatisfaction. His son was good at everything else, but he was too unconfident. Father, I really have to give it to you. Gong Shaoxi almost blurted out a vulgar word. He held it in with great difficulty and explained weakly, You don't know the situation outside. Right now, the entire Lucian prefecture knows that the secluded forest sect has been defeated by us. The Burning Sky faction has become the #1 faction not only in name but also in reality. Many merchants and families have come to us to discuss cooperation, but the other party can only hide like turtles. Do you think they are acting? Exalted deity Shao is the benefactor of our Burning Sky faction. Gong Shaoxi was already completely speechless at his stubborn father. Although Gong Ruidong had not been in contact with the outside world for a long time after he went into seclusion to recuperate, it shouldn't be to the extent that his brain was fried, right? How could he so casually come to a conclusion? Seeing that Gong Shaoxi was about to go crazy, Gong Ruidong finally didn't say anything. Others could lie to her, but her son wouldn't casually lie, right? If the Burning Sky faction really became the #1 faction in the Lucian prefecture, it would mean that a lot of resources would be tilted towards them. The entire faction would no longer be suppressed, and their abilities would become more and more prosperous with each passing day. If they were to put on an act, the losses would be too great and there was no need for it. Gong Ruidong was not stupid to begin with. It was just that when she saw Xiao Chen's young appearance, her first impression was that he was lying, so she did not think too much about it. Now that she understood the details of the whole process, she realized that he really did have this ability. It seemed like he had really offended an exalted immortal. However, Gong Ruidong used to be an expert at the 5th level of the nascent soul stage, so it was inevitable for her to have some arrogance in her heart. Although she knew that she had done something wrong, she didn't want to lower her head and admit defeat. She still stubbornly said, Since I've already offended him, let's just forget about it. No matter what, I was also an expert in the past and I could be on equal footing with that guy with the surname Shao. Once I recover my cultivation, I will also have the ability to fight against him. He definitely wouldn't dare to take revenge on the Burning Sky faction. My dear father, do you think we can wait for you to recover your cultivation? Exalted immortal Shao can destroy the entire Burning Sky faction right now, and he won't even need to breathe. Gong Shaoxi immediately shattered his father's imagination without mercy. Impossible. Isn't he afraid that I will take revenge after I recover? Gong Ruidong's face was a little embarrassed, and she still tried to be brave and shouted. You also need to have the ability to do so. Gong Shaoxi couldn't help but feel angry and funny at the same time. He said, You should know that exalted immortal Zhao's ability is far beyond the 5th level of the nascent soul stage. I saw with my own eyes that he destroyed old Fart Ying's Dantian with one move. Think about it yourself. Even if you were at your peak, you wouldn't be able to destroy old Fart Ying with one move, right? Then what should I do? Gong Ruidong finally realized that he had caused a huge disaster this time. His face was a little pale and he said with a troubled expression, When he came over this morning, I had already said everything. His ability is so high, he shouldn't forgive me so easily, right? When he thought of the foundation that the Burning Sky faction had built over so many years, it was very likely that it would be ruined because he had lost his mind for a moment and said a few careless words. Gong Ruidong was already full of regret. It's good that you know your mistake. Gong Shaoxi saw that his father had finally realized his mistake, and his tone also softened. He comforted him softly, you don't need to worry too much. As long as you don't do anything too excessive, Exalted Immortal Zhao's temper is still relatively good. Before I came to find you, I had already apologized to him. You shouldn't be too angry. No. If you want to apologize, that's your problem. This disaster was caused by me, so I should personally apologize to him. Gong Ruidong shook his head with a solemn expression and said in a deep voice, I just don't know if he will accept my disrespect to him in the morning, and if I rashly go over to apologize now. Gong Shaoxi felt that what his father said was a little reasonable. After thinking for a while, a light suddenly flashed in his mind, and he slapped his thigh and said, I have an idea. How about this? I will carry you over, and you can personally apologize to him sincerely, and then beg him to recognize you as his disciple. You mean apprenticeship? Gong Ruidong was taken aback. He looked at Gong Shaoxi with a strange expression and asked, But I remember that you are also Exalted Immortal Zhao's disciple, right? If I also become his disciple, how should we talk about it? Isn't that simple? Gong Shaoxi carelessly patted his own chest. When the time comes, we will talk about it separately. You can call me senior brother, and I will continue to call you father. Alright, it seems like we can only do this now. Although Gong Ruidong still felt that it was a little strange, there was no other way at the moment. Besides, if Exalted Immortal Zhao was really as he said, and was able to cure his injuries, then he might very well be at the level of the legendary nascent soul paragon. If he could become the disciple of a nascent soul paragon, then the matter of seniority wouldn't be a problem at all. With this thought, Gong Ruidong also agreed. The two of them discussed for a while and felt that this matter should not be delayed. It would be better not to wait until tomorrow and go over that night to finalize this matter. Gong Ruidong simply packed up and then leaned on Gong Shaoxi's back and quickly rushed towards Xiao Chen's residence. At the same time, on the other side of the Burning Heavens faction, in a beautifully decorated guest room, Hong Zhu was pouting and complaining to Xiao Chen in a low voice. Chapter 1390. In the morning, Xiao Chen came back rather early. Hong Zhu was a little surprised and asked curiously. Xiao Chen had nothing to do, so he simply explained the situation. After hearing it, Hong Zhu couldn't help but stomp her feet in anger. Although she saw that Xiao Chen didn't seem to care, she was extremely dissatisfied with Gong Ruidong, whose eyes grew on his forehead. Unable to find an opportunity in the afternoon, after finishing dinner, Hong Zhu complained to Xiao Chen, wanting to leave the Burning Sky faction as soon as possible. Hong Zhu felt that since the other party didn't want to see her, there was no point in continuing to stay. It would be better to just leave. Little Hong Zhu, don't make trouble. We've just arrived in the cultivation world and are unfamiliar with the people and the place. It wasn't easy for us to find a sect that we can rely on for a while. No matter what, we should first ask them to help us inquire about the whereabouts of Qing Menjing and the others, right? Xiao Chen helplessly comforted him. Besides, didn't Gong Shaoxi already come over to apologize? Calm down, it's easy to get wrinkles when you're angry. Xiao Chen chose to stay in the Burning Sky faction because he was somewhat helpless. Even if his strength was outstanding, he was only one person. Including Hong Zhu, there were only two people. In such a vast and boundless cultivation world, with just the strength of two people, where could they go to find others? If there was any other way, Xiao Chen couldn't be bothered to stay in the Burning Sky faction and wait for news from others all day long. That stinky old man Gong Ruidong, it's fine if he looks down on me, but he even dares to scold this big sister's husband. Although Hong Zhu could understand Xiao Chen, she still felt indignant and resentfully muttered, You went to treat his injuries with good intentions, but in the end, not only did you not get any benefits, you even ended up being called a swindler. I'm so angry. The more she spoke, the angrier she became. Hong Zhu simply reached out and grabbed the pillow placed on the bed. Her small fists continuously pounded on it while she muttered something, as if she was casting a spell on Gong Ruidong. Forget it, forget it. That old man has been staying at home for too long in order to recuperate. He probably hasn't seen much of the world. There's no need to stoop to his level. Seeing Hong Zhu angrily pounding the pillow, Xiao Chen could not help but laugh. He had never imagined that this girl, who was usually so flirtatious, would occasionally reveal such a cute side. Hongzhu pouted and was about to say something when he suddenly heard a knock on the door, followed by Gong Xiaoxi's cautious voice. "Hi, Immortal Master, Master Hong, have you rested? I have something to discuss with you. Is that convenient?" "It's not convenient. It was already the middle of the night, what was there to discuss?" "Can't you wait until tomorrow to come back?" Hongzhu had originally been filled with a belly full of anger and had been worried about not having a place to vent it, so he decided to vent it all on Gong Xiaoxi. Hongzhu had originally felt that the atmosphere tonight was pretty good and had wanted to take the opportunity to throw a little tantrum and have Xiao Qin coax her. Who would have thought that Gong Xiaoxi would be so thick-skinned as to disturb them? She had nearly exploded with rage. This. Gong Xiaoxi was instantly dumbfounded. He stood rooted to the spot for a long time but was unable to say anything. His mind was completely blank and he did not know what to do. Leaning against Gong Xiaoxi's back, Gong Ruidong also had a bitter expression on his face. He subconsciously thought that Hongzhu's words were high immortal Zhao's. Now that the other party was not even willing to see him, it seemed that he was really angry. This time he was really in trouble. "All right, little Hongzhu, don't make a fuss." Xiao Qin smiled bitterly and shook his head. He lightly pinched Hongzhu's cheek, using his eyes to signal her not to cause trouble. Only then did he raise his voice and say, "We haven't slept yet, come in." After saying that, Xiao Qin thought for a moment, then stood up and walked over to open the door that he had originally closed. Hongzhu could not help but be stunned by Xiao Qin's sudden attack. She unconsciously touched her cheek and her pretty face blushed slightly. Her mind also began to run wild. What does Xiao Qin mean by this action? Could it be that he has suddenly become enlightened? I've never seen him act so intimately in the past. Also, what does that look in his eyes mean? Could it be that he wants to do something intimate with me tonight? So embarrassing, should I agree or not? Seeing that Xiao Qin had opened the door for him, Gong Xiaoxi hurriedly walked into the room with a smile on his face. He kept saying, "Hi Immortal Master, I'm really sorry. Why did you disturb me so late at night?" "Mistress Hong, your face is so red, could it be that you're sick? Do you want me to help you find a doctor?" "Father, why did you hit me?" Just now, as Gong Xiaoxi was speaking, he raised his head and saw Hongzhu's blushing face. Feeling somewhat puzzled, he casually asked, but before he could finish his words, he felt Gong Ruidong suddenly hit his back. "Go to hell, what are you saying? You're the one who's sick in the head." Hongzhu came to her senses and glared fiercely at Gong Xiaoxi before turning her head away in annoyance. "That. Hi Immortal Xiao, Miss Hong, my son doesn't have the slightest bit of eyesight and he doesn't really know how to speak. Please don't take it to heart, Gong Ruidong hurriedly tried to smooth things over. Gong Ruidong was an experienced person. With just a glance, she could guess that Xiao Qin and Hongzhu were about to do something that adults like to do. She just had to interrupt them before they could even begin, so they would definitely be angry. "Your son is indeed a bit of a fool, but I think you're also quite simple-minded." Glancing at Gong Ruidong, who was lying on Gong Xiaoxi's back, Xiao Qin frowned and asked, "All right, hurry up and tell me. Is there something urgent for you to rush over to find me in the middle of the night? If there's nothing else, we're going to sleep." There's something. Gong Xiaoxi nodded repeatedly. He first placed his father on a chair at the side, then ordered a servant to bring over a cup of hot tea. After the hot tea was served, Gong Xiaoxi took the teacup and respectfully handed it to Xiao Qin. Then he bowed slightly and said with a shy smile, "Hi Immortal Master, although we're already master and disciple, I have yet to formally acknowledge you as my disciple. As the saying goes, etiquette cannot be discarded, so I've specially come over this time to make up for it." "Is it really worth it for you to disturb me in the middle of the night for such a trivial matter? Can't you come back tomorrow?" Xiao Qin could not help but roll his eyes. However, he still reached out and took the teacup. Just as he was about to raise his head and drink the tea, Xiao Qin saw Gong Xiaoxi suddenly kneel down in front of him with a thud. He jumped in fright and immediately dodged to the side. Not knowing whether to laugh or cry, he scolded, "Are you crazy? Isn't it just acknowledging me as your master? Can't you do it properly? Why do you have to kneel and kowtow? Are you trying to shorten my lifespan or what?" Chapter 1391. Master is wise. "In fact, I came to find you tonight not only to perform a formal apprenticeship ceremony, but also to ask for your help." Gong Xiaoxi was not offended by Xiao Qin's rebuke at all. He grinned and insisted on kneeling on the ground, looking at Xiao Qin with a face full of longing. "Stand up first. How will it look if others see this?" Don't you want me to treat your father's illness? I promise you there's no need to kneel. Xiao Qin waved his hand and motioned for Gong Xiaoxi to stand up. Xiao Qin felt that Gong Xiaoxi was making a mountain out of a molehill. The apprenticeship ceremony was just a formality. Why did it have to be so grand? But no matter what he said, Gong Xiaoxi kept kneeling and refused to get up. Xiao Qin had no choice but to pick up the cup in his hand and drink a few mouthfuls of tea, taking it as accepting him as a disciple. Thank you, exalted master, but I still can't get up because I want to ask for your help with another matter. My father also wants to be apprenticed to you. If you agree, then I will be his senior brother from now on. Gong Xiaoxi said seriously as soon as Xiao Qin finished his tea. Xiao Qin didn't even have time to swallow the tea in his mouth. When he heard this, he sprayed it all over Gong Xiaoxi's face. However, Xiao Qin had forgotten to apologize. At this time he was looking at this strange father and son pair in disbelief. He didn't know what to say at all. Weren't these two people's imaginations 2F** king big? Father and son actually want to be senior brother and junior brother? Exalted master, don't worry. I won't deny him as my father. It's just that in front of you we will be senior brother and junior brother. In front of outsiders we will still be father and son. There is no difference. Gong Xiaoxi seemed to have guessed Xiao Qin's doubts and immediately added. Xiao Qin opened his mouth but still couldn't say anything. He just turned to look at Gong Ruidong, who was sitting on the side with a smile, and then looked down at Gong Xiaoxi, whose expression didn't change at all. He felt as if he had been struck by lightning from head to toe, no, hundreds of times. Gong Xiaoxi thought that Xiao Qin was wondering why Gong Ruidong didn't kneel to him and quickly continued to explain. Exalted master, because my father is injured, it's not very convenient for him to walk. This time I will kneel to you on his behalf. At this moment, the tea on Gong Xiaoxi's face was still dripping down, dripping onto the ground. There were still a few yellowish-brown tea leaves hanging near his nostrils, but he didn't seem to feel it at all. He continued to look at Xiao Qin with reverence, his body not moving at all. It seemed that as long as Xiao Qin didn't agree, he would kneel and not get up. Hong Zhu, who was sitting on the side, also had a shocked expression. He thought to himself, do the sects in the cultivation world have any lower limits? One is a father, the other is a son. Now, not only are they going to enter the same sect, the father and son have to address each other as senior brother and junior brother. The strangest thing is that the two of them don't think there's a problem. Instead, they both look as if it's only natural. This is too strange. Ahem. After a long silence, Xiao Qin finally came back to his senses. He cleared his throat uncomfortably and looked at Gong Xiaoxi with a strange expression. I say, the cultivation world is really messed up. Although I don't mind taking in another disciple, I think the two of you, father and son, should reconsider it carefully. After all, the son is the senior brother and the father is the junior brother. This kind of thing is strange no matter how I hear it. If this gets out, you will definitely become a laughing stock. Don't worry, master. Gong Xiaoxi patted his chest loudly and said righteously, we will definitely know what we are doing. We won't say it casually and lose face for Master Immortal. Don't worry, exalted Immortal Xiao. My son and I are still quite tight-lipped. Tonight's matter is only known to the few of us here. It will definitely not spread. Gong Ruidong also chimed in. All right. Xiao Qin saw that this strange father and son pair would not give up until he agreed. He could only nod helplessly. In any case, to me there's no difference between 1 and 2 disciples. If I'm free, I will naturally give you some pointers. However, if I go out to travel and gain experience, the two of you will cultivate and comprehend on your own. Of course, of course. Gong Xiaoxi immediately got up and calmly wiped away the water stains and tea leaves on his face. He smiled and echoed, Exalted Immortal Master has told me this before. On the way here just now, I specially told my father about it. He has already remembered it. Seeing that Xiao Qin had finally agreed, Gong Ruidong could not help but heave a sigh of relief. He said with some embarrassment, Master, I'm really sorry about what happened this morning. I was blinded by greed and failed to recognize Mount Tai. I said such disrespectful words. Please forgive me, Master. Please don't stoop to my level. That's right. Junior brother is young and ignorant. He spoke without thinking. I hope Master won't blame him. Gong Xiaoxi quickly echoed. It's okay. I'm used to it anyway. Xiao Qin waved his hand speechlessly. I'm not such a narrow-minded person. You don't have to take it to heart. Thank you for your understanding, Master. Thank you for speaking up for father, senior brother. Gong Ruidong saw that Xiao Qin really did not mind. He was full of joy and thanked him. He then asked with a face full of anticipation. That disciple would like to be bold and ask Master, what is your current strength? Could it be the legendary Original Soul Realm? Original Soul Realm? What's so great about that? Legendary? You're too easily satisfied. Xiao Qin curled his lips in disdain and played with the cup of tea that had been emptied. Gong Ruidong and Gong Xiaoxi looked at each other. Did they hear wrongly? Exalted Immortal Xiao actually felt that Original Soul Realm was not powerful enough? Seeing that the two of them were in a daze, Xiao Qin put down the teacup in his hand. He pinched his chin and asked calmly, speaking of which, since your Burning Sky faction is so powerful in Lucian Prefecture, can you find an Original Soul Realm cultivator for me? It just so happens that I have nothing to do now. I can beat up this type of cultivator to try it out. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Gong Ruidong's mouth opened wide. He was so shocked that he could not say anything. Master could even beat up a cultivator at the peak of the nascent soul stage? Could it be that he had already reached the level of the mysterious ascending stage that he had only seen in the ancient books? That must be it. Master could cripple Ying Taichi with one move. Such a powerful strength could not be achieved by just an Original Soul Realm cultivator. He must have already reached the profound ascension stage. Chapter 1392. Thinking of this, Gong Ruidong felt even more respect for Xiao Qin. He had already forgotten to answer his Lord Master's question. He could not help but let his imagination run wild. If he could receive his guidance in the future, then maybe in his lifetime he could also reach the unattainable peak of the nascent soul stage, right? Or even try to break through to the profound ascension stage. Heavens, just thinking about it makes me feel excited. Seeing that his father was sitting there in a daze without replying, Gong Xiaoxi did not dare to be slow and immediately said, Exalted Master, as far as I know, the Tranquil Forest sect really has an original infant stage cultivator at the original infant stage. Although Gong Xiaoxi was shocked to hear Immortal Zhao's words, he had been with Immortal Xiao for quite some time now. He had personally witnessed his Immortal Master's various magical techniques. So, his mental fortitude had become much stronger. That was why he was able to react so quickly. Oh? Then why did sect leader Duan say that Ying Taichi was the highest level immortal cultivator in the Tranquil Forest sect? I remember that fellow was only at original infant stage level 2 or 3. Xiao Qin frowned and asked in surprise. It's like this. That original infant stage cultivator is currently traveling around the immortal cultivation world and has not returned to the Tranquil Forest sect for a long time. Gong Xiaoxi quickly explained. If that's the case, looks like when he was around you guys suffered a lot from him? Xiao Qin looked at Gong Xiaoxi, who was able to answer fluently, and asked with a smile. If not for the fact that he knew this fellow very well, Gong Xiaoxi would not be able to say anything so casually. Yes. When that old thing was around, we were suppressed by the Tranquil Forest sect. Gong Xiaoxi nodded his head in agreement. Ever since he left, the Burning Sky faction became the #1 faction in Lucian Prefecture. It was really glorious then. But it's a pity that my Junior accidentally went berserk and was replaced by the Tranquil Forest sect. Cough cough. Gong Ruidong's face turned red and he hurriedly pretended to clear his throat. He glared at Gong Xiaoxi and signaled him to stop talking nonsense. Oh yes, thanks to you, Master, we have returned to the throne of #1. Gong Xiaoxi saw the opportunity and immediately changed the topic to flatter Xiao Qin. Then he added, by the way, I forgot to tell you just now. That person at the peak of the original infant stage is the master of Old Man Ying whom you crippled last time. That's great. I'm guessing that Old Devil Ying has suffered a setback in my hands, so he's planning to get his master back once he returns. Xiao Qin immediately showed an overjoyed look. He nodded with satisfaction and said, when the time comes, I will let him perform a trapeze or other tricks to open your eyes. Ever since he came to the world of cultivation, Xiao Qin had always wanted to find an expert of the same level to compete with. He wanted to feel the difference between his cultivation and that of ordinary cultivators. Since he couldn't find an expert of the profound ascension stage, then a peak of the nascent soul stage would barely suffice. I didn't expect Master to really be able to make people go to heaven. I will wait and see then. Gong Ruidong suddenly recalled what Xiao Qin said to him in the morning and could not help but exclaim. If it was in the past, Gong Ruidong would definitely think that Xiao Qin was taking advantage of the fact that there was no one at the peak of the original infant stage to fight with him. Hence he was bragging. But now that he saw his master's eager look, Gong Ruidong had no doubt that he could suppress someone at the peak of the original infant stage. That exalted master, We still don't know when old man Ying's master will return. Why don't you check on my father's injuries first? Let's see how to treat him? Although Gong Xiaoxi wanted to see the tranquil forest sect lose face, his first concern was how to treat his father's injuries. Alright, let me check his pulse first. Xiao Qin nodded his head and walked to Gong Ruidong's side. He stretched out his finger to check his pulse. After feeling for a while, he found that there were indeed a few stagnant meridians in his body. The qi in his dantian was also rather chaotic. His pulse was a little depressed. It should be because he had been injured for too long that it had become a serious illness. Master, my injuries have been like this for many years. I've eaten many treasures in between, but there was no effect at all. Do you think there's any hope of curing it? Gong Ruidong asked anxiously as he looked at Xiao Chen's serious face and did not speak. Xiao Chen came back to his senses and nodded his head. It shouldn't be too much of a hindrance. Let me think about it for a night. Tomorrow, when I come up with a suitable plan, I will tell you the detailed steps. Really? Really? My injuries can be cured? Gong Ruidong was stunned on the spot. His eyes gradually turned red and his voice trembled as he asked. How many years had it been? He had eaten countless medicines and tried countless methods. Even Gong Ruidong himself was on the verge of despair. Who would have thought that a miracle would suddenly fall from the sky today? Someone said that his injuries could be cured. At this moment, Gong Ruidong felt as if he was in a dream. The feeling was too surreal. What? You don't believe that I can cure you? Xiao Qin smiled faintly and asked in return. I absolutely believe. Gong Xiaoxi was afraid that Gong Ruidong would say something that he should not say. He quickly replied, then we will go back first and wait for the good news from Master. We won't disturb your rest and Master's wife. Yes. Let's go back first. Let's go back first. Gong Ruidong immediately woke up. He nodded his head and called for Gong Xiaoxi to carry him. Gong Xiaoxi ran over in 2 or 3 steps and held Gong Ruidong's hand. He said emotionally, Father, now that Master said that your illness can be cured, I will carry you back first and come to find Master tomorrow morning. Xiao Qin choked again. This Gong Xiaoxi was really a clown. If this sentence was heard by people who did not know the inside story, they would definitely be stunned. However, it could be seen that although Gong Ruidong and Gong Xiaoxi were father and son, their personalities were very different. Gong Ruidong was upright and proud, but somewhat old-fashioned and stubborn. Gong Xiaoxi, on the other hand, was tactful and sophisticated. He was good at dealing with all kinds of situations and would think of ways to achieve things that were beneficial to him. He did not know whether the father and son, whose personalities were completely different, would quarrel with each other when they communicated. However, Xiao Qin could also see that the two had a very good relationship. Gong Xiaoxi had thought of so many ways to cure his father's injuries. He had even made a scene to make Xiao Qin recognize him as his master. Don't come too early. We are going to sleep in. Hong Zhu hurriedly shouted as he watched Gong Xiaoxi gradually leave with Gong Ruidong on his back. Chapter 1393. Tonight, I might even have to do some shameful things with Xiao Qin. Hong Zhu did not want to be disturbed by Gong Xiaoxi again. Although her imagination was very beautiful, unfortunately Hong Zhu still did not get what she wanted. That night, other than obediently dual cultivating with her, Xiao Qin did not even speak more than a few words to her, let alone perform any passionate actions. This caused Hong Zhu to feel extremely stifled, and she inwardly cursed the blockhead countless times. An uneventful night passed, and the sky outside the window had just begun to brighten when Xiao Qin immediately stopped dual cultivating. After putting on his clothes, he walked to the washroom with a contemplative expression on his face to wash up, causing Hong Zhu, who had just woken up, to be completely baffled, not knowing what was going on. In truth, Xiao Qin did have his own doubts, because he had recently discovered that Hong Zhu's strength had been increasing more and more slowly, and it had become extremely difficult for her to break through to the next realm. He could not help but be greatly puzzled by this situation. After repeatedly thinking about the process of him dual cultivating with the other women, Xiao Qin did not discover anything different. So why was Hong Zhu's progress so slow? What exactly was the problem? Elder Heaven Ancestor, why is Hong Zhu's progress so slow? Did you notice anything amiss? Unable to figure out the reason no matter how he thought about it, Xiao Qin asked Elder Heaven Ancestor in his mind while washing his face. After a moment of silence, Elder Heaven Ancestor slowly opened his mouth and said, I've also thought about this problem. Do you remember when you were cultivating, you once refined medicinal herbs to temper your body? I remember. It also cost me a lot of money, causing me to look for ways to earn money everywhere, and I even went to help people look for dogs. Xiao Chen nodded. This past event had left a very deep impression on him. And Hongzhu is also cultivating now, but she has not taken medicinal herbs like you. I suspect that this is the reason why her cultivation progress is so slow. The Elder Heaven Ancestor said calmly, go back and make her a dose of the medicine according to the original prescription. She should be able to level up quickly. So that's how it is. I thought that the spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the immortal cultivation world was so abundant that there was no need to drink medicine. Xiao Chen suddenly realized and sighed with emotion. No matter how good the spiritual energy is, it's useless if I can't absorb it into my body. Elder Heaven Ancestor scoffed at Xiao Chen's idea. Otherwise, why are there so many unarmed ordinary people in the cultivation world? Everyone here should be an expert cultivator. Alright, I was wrong. Xiao Chen touched his nose awkwardly and changed the topic. Then how do we treat Gong Ruidong's injury? Can I use my Yuan Qi to help him break through the blockages in his meridians? No. The Elder Heaven Ancestor flatly rejected Xiao Chen's idea and said in a deep voice, he has been paralyzed for too long. If you rashly pour pure Yuan Qi into his body, it is very likely that the blockages in his meridians will be damaged, and he will suffer from Qigong deviation again, which will lead to his death. Then can we give him some natural treasures first, with the help of the medicinal efficacy to open up his meridians, and then give him the right medicine? Xiao Chen suddenly thought of the natural treasures he had collected in the inner martial world. He had kept the package with him and had not touched it until now. Maybe it could be used this time, and Gong Ruidong and the others would not have to spend spiritual crystals to buy it. No, we can't directly give him a strong medicine in his body. The Elder Heaven Ancestor rejected Xiao Chen's suggestion again and explained simply, the natural treasures you brought are too strong and not suitable for him. If we force him to use them, it will cause the same result as when you pour primordial qi into him. This won't work and that won't work. Will his wounds be incurable? Xiao Chen was dazed. Last night, he had patted his chest and promised that he would ask the Elder Heaven Ancestor to come and pick up the plan today, but now he realized that none of the approaches worked. That won't happen. The Elder Heaven Ancestor's words immediately reassured Xiao Chen. How about this? I'll write another prescription for you. You ask them to bring the herbs here. Then, you will brew the medicine the way you did before. When it is done, give the soup to Hongzhu and leave the dregs to Gong Ruidong. Huh. Oh. He has spent a lot of spiritual crystals, only to get some dregs in the end. Isn't that a bit inappropriate? Xiao Chen was a bit hesitant about the Elder Heaven Ancestor's suggestion. Wasn't giving the dregs to Jean Beibei's grandfather what he had done in the past? But at that time he had bought the medicine. Golden Fur Lion King had only spent money to buy the dregs. Now that he had asked Gong Shaoxi to spend spiritual crystals to buy medicine, he had ended up giving him a pile of dregs. Xiao Chen felt that he had wronged Gong Shaoxi and his son. Although the Burning Sky faction was the #1 faction in the Lucian prefecture, they had only recently eased up a little. In the past they had been suppressed by the secluded forest sect too much. Xiao Chen could not bear to let them spend this money for nothing. That's fine too. If you have a better treatment method you can go ahead and give it a try. Anyway, I have already told you the method. As for whether you want to do it or not, that's your decision, the Elder Heaven Ancestor said calmly. Alright then. Anyway, it's not my first time doing this. Give me the prescription, I will ask Gong Shaoxi to buy the medicine. Xiao Chen shook his head helplessly and replied with a bitter smile. The Elder Heaven Ancestor did not speak again. After a while, a list of medicinal ingredients appeared in Xiao Chen's mind. He quickly put down the towel in his hand and quickly returned to his room. He picked up a pen and paper and wrote down all the medicinal ingredients he needed. After he finished writing, Xiao Chen ordered his servants to find Gong Shaoxi. When Gong Shaoxi came over, his face was full of excitement. When he thought that his father's injury could be cured, his footsteps became much lighter. Xiao Chen did not waste any more words with him. He immediately passed the prescription to him and instructed him to buy all the ingredients on the list according to the prescription and then send them to him. Gong Shaoxi respectfully received the prescription. Then he lowered his head and glanced at the medicinal ingredients on the list. His expression changed slightly. He saw that all of the ingredients written on the list were priceless treasures and elixirs of the highest grade. Fortunately, there were not any that were particularly rare. As long as one had spiritual crystals, they could basically be bought. Gong Shaoxi only felt a slight pain in his heart. Then he immediately made a decision. In order to cure his father's illness, he had to buy the most expensive medicinal ingredients. After bidding farewell to Xiao Chen, Gong Xiaoxi immediately went to the Burning Sky faction's warehouse to transfer a large amount of spiritual crystals. Then he left the faction and went straight to the various big medicine shops in the Lucian prefecture. In his eagerness to save his father, Gong Xiaoxi used the fastest speed he had ever used in his life. After about an hour, Gong Xiaoxi returned to the Burning Sky faction with bags of medicinal ingredients. He solemnly handed the items over to Xiao Chen. Chapter 1394. Gong Xiaoxi had originally wanted to stay and watch how Xiao Chen refined the medicine, but before even a quarter of an hour had passed, he was directly thrown out by Xiao Chen. After all, when Xiao Chen finished brewing the medicine, the authentic medicinal soup would be given to Hong Zhu, while Gong Ruitong would only be drinking the dregs of the medicine. Therefore he naturally could not let Gong Xiaoxi know the truth. After patiently simmering for several hours, Xiao Chen finally finished brewing all the medicinal ingredients. Xiao Chen fiddled around in the secret chamber for a long time, before he took out a bowl of medicinal soup with a lighter color and ordered the servant standing outside to bring it to Gong Xiaoxi as soon as possible. He told the servant to bring it to Gong Ruitong immediately, and then circulate his mental cultivation method to spread the medicinal efficacy. After the servant left, Xiao Chen returned to the secret room, took out another bowl of dark-colored medicinal soup, and stealthily slipped into Hong Zhu's room. "Xiao Chang, husband, why do you smell like medicinal herbs?" Seeing Xiao Chen enter the room with a bowl of jet-black medicinal soup, Hong Zhu, who was looking at himself in the mirror, wrinkled his nose and asked in surprise, "What are you holding in your hand? You're not planning to drug this big sister, and then take the opportunity to do that to me, are you?" "Ahem, I just realized that you always like to think of good things." Xiao Chen teased with a smile, then carefully placed the steaming bowl on the table and urged Hong Zhu, "I just brewed this medicinal soup, it can help you with your daily cultivation. Drink it while it's still hot." As this was the first time he had brewed the medicinal ingredients, it had been brewed relatively early, and he still had to help Gong Ruitong boil the dregs of the medicine after it was done. Xiao Chen had deliberately injected a trace of yuan qi into the medicinal soup when it came out of the furnace, thus preserving the temperature of the medicinal soup. Even now it was still steaming hot. "What kind of medicine is this?" Hong Zhu curiously stood up and walked over. He approached the medicinal soup and lightly sniffed it, then muttered in a strange tone, "What ingredients did you put in this soup? Why can't I smell it?" Since the Hong family's medicinal herb business was very large, Hong Zhu had grown up surrounded by piles of medicinal herbs. However, even after sniffing and sniffing at the bowl, she still found it difficult to distinguish which medicinal herbs and natural treasures were in the bowl. "These are all medicinal herbs of the immortal cultivation world, how could you possibly smell them?" Xiao Chen looked at Hong Zhu's slightly knitted eyebrows and said with a smile, "Really?" Hong Zhu cast a suspicious glance at Xiao Chen, then asked with a grin, "Why do you want me to drink medicine all of a sudden? Are you trying to do something to me? Don't always think about these useless things. This is to help you cultivate. Didn't I drink medicine often when I was cultivating? Don't you remember that you always go to Little Hong's pharmacy to buy medicinal herbs?" Xiao Chen shrugged his shoulders and urged, "All right, stop wasting time. Drink the medicine quickly and circulate your mental cultivation method to absorb the medicine. Exercise for another 2 to 4 hours and you'll see the effect." "All right, I'll believe you this time." Seeing that Xiao Chen would not take the bait no matter what, Hong Zhu could only secretly purse her lips and quietly pick up the bowl on the table. Just as she brought the medicinal soup to her mouth, Hong Zhu felt a scorching heat on her delicate upper lip. She could not help but pout and complain, "Hiss, it's so hot. Husband Xiao Chen, come and help me blow it." "Blow it? Cough cough, you're already a grown man yet you're still afraid of heat? You're a cultivator." Hearing Hong Zhu's slightly ambiguous words, Xiao Chen helplessly shook his head. "Can't cultivators be afraid of heat? I want you to help me blow it." Hong Zhu pouted and straightforwardly handed the bowl of medicine to Xiao Chen. "You win." Xiao Chen felt a headache coming on as he looked at the spoiled Hong Zhu. He had no choice but to gently blow a few breaths at the medicinal soup in the bowl. "Hee, this is how big sister's obedient little brother should be." Hong Zhu smiled coquettishly in satisfaction and put away the bowl of medicine. She tested the temperature of the medicinal soup again and felt that it was about right before slowly drinking it. After patiently waiting for Hong Zhu to finish drinking the medicine, Xiao Chen took the bowl and stood up, saying, "It's done. If there's nothing else, go and cultivate. This bowl of medicinal soup cost me a lot of spirit crystals, so don't waste these precious herbs." It's so bitter. Husband Xiaoqin, big sister wants to eat candy. Or maybe something sweet is fine too. Hongzhu frowned and stuck out his tongue while fanning his mouth with his palm, trying to get rid of the bitter taste in his mouth. Xiaoqin poked Hongzhu's forehead and snappily said, "Candy my ass. Where am I supposed to find something sweet in such a short time, ugh." Before he could finish his sentence, Xiaoqin saw Hongzhu pouncing towards him and giving him a French kiss. Her playful little tongue was still stirring in Xiaoqin's mouth. The two kissed passionately for a while before Hongzhu happily left Xiaoqin's lips and happily said, "Haha, my mouth is finally not bitter anymore. Thank you, husband Xiaoqin. Big sister is going to cultivate now." Xiaoqin was stunned for a long time before he finally realized that he had been taken advantage of. Looking at Hongzhu, who was wholeheartedly cultivating, Xiaoqin sighed. He was truly at his wits' end. He knew that this little she-devil had always wanted to have an intimate relationship with him that was beyond friendship. However, he was afraid of being teased, so he had directly rejected her. He did not expect that she would actually come up with such a despicable trick this time. He was completely caught off guard and fell for it. Xiaoqin touched his fragrant lips and shook his head with a smile. It must be said, the taste of this hot kiss was really not bad. After tidying up the medicinal bowl, Xiaoqin originally planned to go over to Gong Ruidong's side to take a look. However, after thinking about it, he decided to stay behind and stand guard for Hongzhu. No matter what, Gong Ruidong was someone who had experience in cultivation, so she naturally knew what to do after drinking the medicinal soup. However, Hongzhu had just started cultivating, and drinking a medicinal soup to aid in his cultivation was the first time he had done so. Thus, Xiaoqin felt that it would be better for him to take care of Hongzhu. Exalted immortal Xiao. My father's lower body is starting to move. Your prescription is really effective. What should I do next? Seeing that Hongzhu had gradually entered a state of cultivation, Xiaoqin felt a little relieved. However, he suddenly heard Gong Xiaoxi's loud shout coming from outside the door. Startled, Xiaoqin first turned to look at Hongzhu. After discovering that she was not affected at all and was still immersed in her cultivation, he finally relaxed. He opened the door with a gloomy expression and walked out, making a shushing gesture to the beaming Gong Xiaoxi. What are you yelling about? Do you even know how to speak properly? Xiaoqin glared at Gong Xiaoxi and said in a low voice with a sullen expression, Your father's lower body is starting to move, what does that have to do with me? Running over here and yelling like a ghost for no reason, aren't you afraid of disturbing others? Do you believe that I won't cut off your tongue and feed it to the dogs right now? Chapter 1395. Xiaoqin was speechless at Gong Xiaoxi. This guy was really too careless with his words. What did he mean by moving his lower body? How could he say such ambiguous words in broad daylight? What an idiot. Oh, I'm sorry, immortal Xiao. My father is my junior brother, your disciple. Just now, when he drank the medicine you prescribed, he felt a tingling pain in his lower body and the soles of his feet were a little itchy. You should know that his legs and feet have not felt for many years. At this moment he is very happy, so he specially asked me to come over to tell you. Gong Xiaoxi touched his nose embarrassedly and smiled. He thought that Xiaoqin had forgotten that his father was his junior brother. At this time, Gong Xiaoxi was in a very good mood. Even if Xiaoqin scolded him harshly, he would not mind. Oh, that means the medicine is effective. Xiaoqin nodded patiently and asked, Is he cultivating now? Could it be that he was too excited after feeling it that he even forgot about cultivating? No. Gong Xiaoxi quickly shook his head and explained, He is now in the stage of adjusting his breath. Before cultivating, he asked me to report to you first and share this joy. Gong Xiaoxi was so excited that his voice became louder and louder. Before Xiaoqin could stop him, he asked loudly, By the way, immortal master, when will my junior brother drink the medicine for the second time? You're so noisy, can't you speak softly? Xiaoqin kicked Gong Xiaoxi angrily and kicked him away from the room. Then he walked over and said slightly impatiently, Let him continue drinking it tomorrow. I think it won't be long before he completely recovers. In the future, don't bother me with this kind of small matter. Look at you, you're so surprised and inexperienced. Looking at the ecstatic Gong Xiaoxi, Xiaoqin said, What's there to be proud of? If it weren't for the fact that your father's meridians are too weak, I would be able to cure him in a few breaths of time. Why would I need to drag it out for so long? Yes. Although those medicinal ingredients are a little expensive, as long as they can cure my father's injuries, no matter how many spirit crystals we spend, the Burning Sky sect will not hesitate. Gong Xiaoxi crawled up and said confidently. Then he rubbed the footprint on his, but that was kicked by Xiaoqin. Only now did Gong Xiaoxi realize that he had been a little too rash. His exalted immortal master might be resting, but he had barged in and disturbed him. His exalted immortal master would definitely be angry. After going back last night, Gong Ruidong had already reminded him about this matter, but he was too excited just now, so Gong Xiaoxi forgot about it. Alright. Do you have anything else? If there's nothing else, hurry back and protect your father and junior brother. Now your master's wife is cultivating in her room, and she's at the critical moment of a breakthrough, so I have to watch over her. I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Xiaoqin couldn't be bothered to talk with Gong Xiaoxi any longer, and directly asked him to leave. Then he turned around and walked back to his room. What? So it's master's wife who's cultivating? Gong Xiaoxi was shocked. Only now did he understand why his exalted immortal master had such a bad attitude towards him. Realizing that he had spoken a little too loudly, Gong Xiaoxi immediately covered his mouth and didn't dare to say anything else. He tiptoed out of the courtyard where Xiaoqin lived, and also shooed away the disciples and guards who were guarding outside, so that they wouldn't cause trouble for Xiaoqin. In fact, Gong Xiaoxi was thinking too much. If those disciples didn't receive an order to summon them, they absolutely wouldn't dare to rashly enter. Only he, who held a high position in the Burning Sky sect, would dare to barge into someone else's inner courtyard. Xiaoqin didn't pay attention to Gong Xiaoxi's little tricks, and directly walked into the room. He found that Hongzhu had already finished cultivating, and was in the process of adjusting his breathing. His body was emitting the fluctuations of a third-level foundation establishment stage cultivator. Strange, this breakthrough speed still seems a little slow. Xiaoqin rubbed his chin and asked the Elder Heaven Ancestor in his heart, Elder Heaven Ancestor, what's going on? Hongzhu's level still can't be raised. This is still called not being able to be raised? He only drank a bowl of medicinal soup, and he has already advanced from the first level of foundation establishment stage to the third level. That's 2 whole levels. Don't be too greedy. The Elder Heaven Ancestor replied in a bad mood. I just feel that his level is still very low. If there's a battle, he won't be able to help. Xiaoqin awkwardly scratched his head. Think about it, when you first advanced, you drank 5 days of medicinal soup, and still couldn't break through 1 level. Her current situation is already considered not bad. The Elder Heaven Ancestor said indifferently, moreover, now that you are worshipped by the faction, and you don't have to spend your own money to buy medicinal herbs, you should be satisfied. Alright, although it's only 2 levels, it's still better than nothing. Xiaoqin sighed. In any case, there will be medicinal herbs that can be used in the next few days. Let's just slowly advance like this. At least it's much better than before, when I couldn't even advance 1 level. The reason why Xiaoqin wasn't so anxious was because Duan Suqing had already explained to him that the entire Luxian prefecture was relatively large. Moreover, most of the areas were forests and wastelands, and from time to time ferocious beasts roamed about. Although there were many disciples in the Burning Sky faction, to spread the news to find the whereabouts of Qing Minjing and the other women, it still needed to be done step by step, like a minesweeper. Not to mention that it was very difficult to find those forests and wastelands. Some of the remote towns that were scattered behind the dense forests needed to spend a few days, and only after a long and arduous journey could they reach the place safely. After those disciples arrived and set up camp, and then asked the local residents or looked for clues, it would take a certain amount of time before they could send back the confirmed news. According to the instructions of Xiaoqin, the Burning Sky faction would send disciples out to search for people every day. At present, there were already some reports from the nearby investigations, but the situation was not very optimistic. Basically, there were no traces of any strangers entering the territory. Although Xiaoqin didn't say anything, Duan Suqing felt very embarrassed. He had made a guarantee, but in the end it didn't have any effect, so he could only work hard to send the disciples to further places. Xiaoqin also knew that this was a hard work, and it would definitely take more time to search with his own divine sense. Therefore, he could only choose to stay in the faction, refining medicine for Hongzhu to drink every day, and using dual cultivation to help her gradually improve her strength. On the other hand, he continued to use medicinal dregs to treat Gong Ruitong, and patiently waited for the news of Qing Minjing and the other women. At the same time, in the northwest of the cultivation world, in a desolate and boundless desert, there were 2 figures who were moving with difficulty against the scorching sun. Chapter 1396. Looking carefully, the person walking in front was an old man with an evil face, and the figure that fell not far behind him was a delicate and slender woman whose whole face was wrapped in a silk scarf, revealing only a pair of limpid eyes. Hey, are you going in the wrong direction? We've been walking for so long, why haven't we seen a single person? There's not even a town around here, let alone a living person. I'm dying of thirst. The woman wrapped in a silk scarf walked forward with heavy steps and shouted angrily at the old man in front of her. Obviously she had a lot of resentment against him. Miss Cheng, I don't know. The old man in front heard the scolding and responded helplessly, I've never been to this place. You see, it's all desert as far as the eye can see. I can't tell whether we've gone the wrong way or not. Let's go on for a while. I guess there will be a town not far ahead. At this time the old man also collapsed with a bitter face, thinking, it's 2F** king deceitful. I don't know what's wrong with that shit portal. Not only did it send me to this inexplicable place, but it also sent a woman to torture me. If I had known this, I wouldn't have come in. Hearing that, the woman pulled off her veil, revealing an exquisite and beautiful face. Surprisingly, it was Miss Cheng Menjing, whom Xiao Chen had been searching for a long time. Her pretty face was slightly cold and she said coldly, Shishan Giant Bull, didn't you swear that you had been to the world of cultivation when we were at the open heaven gate? Why are you confused now? Is it because you're old and your memory is bad? Are you suffering from dementia? I'm wrong, Miss Cheng. I did come to the world of cultivation before, but at that time, I was directly transmitted to the edge of a small town. I've never been to the desert at all. Shishan Giant Bull wiped his sweat and couldn't help complaining. Shishan Giant Bull racked his brains these days, but he couldn't understand why he was transmitted to the desert and why he came with Cheng Menjing. This was not scientific. Anyway, I've never been here before. You can say whatever you want. With a sullen face, Cheng Menjing shouted angrily, Look, not only can we not find Xiao Chen, but we are also lost in the desert. Tell me the truth, did you deliberately take a detour to find a place to sell me? Miss Cheng, have you ever seen people selling people in the desert? Besides, I don't even know the way, so why would I take a detour to fool you? Shishan Giant Ox was about to cry. It said from the bottom of its heart, I really want to find a small town and rest as soon as possible. At this time, Shishan Giant Ox's heart was about to collapse. Originally, it had its own plan before entering the world of cultivation. After entering the world of cultivation, it would first lead the whole ghost cultivation sect to advance and retreat together with Xiao Chen, and then find a chance to quietly inquire about the location of the evil cultivation sect in the world of cultivation. After finding a suitable sect, it would secretly lead its disciples to seek refuge with Xiao Chen behind his back. It would also feel like returning to its ancestral home. It didn't expect that after entering the transmission gate, it would come to such a remote place. Except for Cheng Menjing, there was no one else around. In fact, Shishan Giant Ox really didn't want to take Cheng Menjing everywhere. After all, the world of cultivation was full of danger and there were too many terrible things. Cheng Menjing, who was only at the peak of the venerable realm, was simply a burden. Once they encountered any danger, this little girl would definitely not be able to help them, and it was very likely that she would drag them down. But after thinking about it carefully, Shishan Giant Bull didn't dare to not bring Cheng Menjing along with him. If he were to carelessly leave this young miss in this dangerous place, she might be killed or crippled by other people or wild beasts. If he were to meet Xiao Chen later, he would definitely vent his anger on him. Shishan Giant Ox struggled in its heart several times, and finally chose to accept the situation helplessly. First, he would take Cheng Menjing to find a place to stay, and then he could only take one step at a time. I don't care so much anyway, it's your fault. Cheng Menjing waved her little fist and shouted fiercely, I don't want to live in the wilderness tonight. If you can't find a town to stay in before the sun goes down, I'll ask Xiao Chen to beat you up. After saying that, Cheng Menjing subconsciously raised her head, wanting to see where the sun was and whether it was about to go down. Inadvertently, she glimpsed something that was not the same as the desert from the corner of her eye. Ah, it's easy for you to say, where can I find? Shishan Giant Ox said with a sad face, but halfway through its words, it was suddenly interrupted by Cheng Menjing, Look over there. Hearing Cheng Menjing's surprised and happy voice, Shishan Giant Ox looked back and found that she was pointing excitedly in a direction in front of the left, so it also looked over there. What's that? With this glance, Shishan Giant Ox also noticed something strange and blurted out in surprise. Shishan Giant Ox rubbed its eyes and looked in that direction again. It saw an oasis in front of the left of the two of them, and if it looked carefully, it could see many wooden houses scattered on the ground. It looked like a village. That seems Seems to be a small town. Cheng Minjing looked for a long time and finally made a judgment. She shouted excitedly, let's go and see. Great, I finally don't have to sleep on the sand tonight. Cheng Minjing cheered and licked her dry lips. She couldn't wait to run in the direction of the small town, but just as she ran to the side of Shishan Giant Ox, she was stopped by him. Why are you blocking the way? Haven't you heard that a good dog doesn't block the way? Cheng Minjing suddenly became angry and glared at Shishan Giant Ox. Miss Cheng, don't act rashly. Shishan Giant Ox didn't seem to hear Cheng Minjing's scolding at all. Instead it said cautiously, there are too many dangers in the world of cultivation. It's better for us not to go there before we know the situation inside. What situation? What danger? Cheng Minjing stamped her feet impatiently, pointed in that direction and said, the town is over there. Won't we know when we go there? Why are you being so timid here? Do you think we are playing online games? How can there be so many dangerous things? Don't. What if that small town is a mirage? We will become a dead horse. Shishan Giant Ox immediately shook its head, and its feet seemed to be rooted to the ground. Chapter 1397. You're crazy. Cheng Minjing rolled her eyes at the bull, pointed to the figure in the town and said, if it's a mirage, how can there be people in it? Don't you even have this common sense? The bull frowned and thought for a while, but still shook its head and tried to persuade her. Even if it's not a mirage, it may be an illusion created by other immortal cultivators, deliberately deceiving people so that they can kill people and rob their treasures. We'd better be careful. I find that your brain circuit is really funny. Cheng Minjing snorted at the bull's description. If immortal cultivators could create such a powerful illusion, would they still need to come to this broken place to rob people? They have no brains at all. Miss Cheng, I'm not trying to scare you, but the people in this immortal cultivator world are beyond our imagination. Even if you are at the venerable peak, you are still nothing here. The bull still tried to persuade Cheng Minjing, but unfortunately she did not buy it at all. So what if it's beyond imagination? Cheng Minjing snorted and said proudly, I'm also very powerful, not worse than Xiao Qin at all. Even if there are masters coming, I can kill them. This. The bull scratched its head in distress, thought for a moment and gritted its teeth. Okay then. If you insist on going to that town, then let's go. But you have to promise me that you must keep a low profile. Trust me, you can't go wrong. Okay then. Let's keep a low profile, then let's go directly? What's the next step after entering the town? Cheng Minjing curled her lips and pulled up the veil again, carefully covering her face, only revealing a pair of beautiful eyes, and then asked in a low voice. After entering the town, let's first find someone to inquire about the situation in the town, then eat something to fill our stomachs, and then think about the next plan. The bull had already thought about the next step just now, and immediately replied. Okay. Cheng Minjing nodded. She thought of something else and quickly asked, by the way, do you have any money with you? If I go to eat, I don't have money to pay the bill. Otherwise I'll become a freeloader. I can't afford to lose my face. Hearing Cheng Minjing's question, Shishan Giant Ox suddenly slapped its head and said, I forgot to tell you before. In the immortal cultivation world, the banknotes of the secular world are not used. They all use high-grade spiritual jades as the common currency. In other words, spiritual jades that have been polished and carved are called spiritual crystals. Don't let it slip later. If it's so troublesome, why didn't you tell us beforehand? Xiao Qin and the others definitely didn't bring enough spirit jades. Spirit crystals. Doesn't that mean they won't even be able to eat? Cheng Minjing frowned and said unhappily. I was in such a hurry that I forgot. And I thought everyone would be teleported to the same place. I didn't expect everyone to be separated. Now even if I want to say it, I can't, Shishan Giant Bull said in a low voice, a little embarrassed. You're really going to piss me off. Cheng Minjing couldn't wait to beat up Shishan Giant Bull. She managed to resist this impulse with great difficulty and asked with a face full of displeasure, What about you? How many spiritual crystals did you bring? Shishan Giant Ox quickly took out a small bag from its arms and counted the spiritual jades in it. It sighed and replied helplessly, Actually, I didn't bring much, just a dozen or so. High-grade spiritual jades are very difficult to obtain. At that time, I just took a bag with me and then forgot about it. Looking at the small bag in Shishan Giant Ox's hand, Cheng Minjing snorted and didn't bother to snatch the bag. Anyway, when there was a place to pay the bill, she would let this old man show up. Shishan Giant Ox carefully put the bag close to its body. Then, it suddenly thought of something. It looked at Qing Minjing and said, "Also, if someone asks about our identity and origin, you must not tell the truth. The cultivators here look down on the people of the martial arts world. Don't make trouble for yourself." Okay, why do you look like you're going through menopause? You're so wishy-washy. You only know how to talk nonsense. Qing Minjing squinted at Shishan Giant Ox and said angrily, "Let's go and ask about the situation. I'm starving." At this time, Qing Minjing's stomach was already rumbling with hunger. Her throat was so thirsty that it was about to spit fire. However, she was also annoyed by Shishan Giant Ox. She couldn't be bothered to talk to him anymore. She covered her ears and walked quickly in the direction of the town. Shishan Jinyunyu's mouth twitched, and his expression became slightly distorted. As the lofty sect leader of the Ghost Cultivation sect and the most outstanding talent in the martial arts world, no one had ever dared to mock him like this. Even Hong Dingrui and the others did not dare to do so. Unexpectedly, after entering the world of immortal cultivation, it was completely insulted by a little girl. Although there was a faint anger in its heart, Shishan Giant Ox did not dare to act rashly. After all, Qing Minjing was Xiao Chen's wife. It could offend anyone but a big shot from the world of immortal cultivation. Shishan Giant Ox, who swallowed his anger, had to adjust his mood and obediently followed behind Qing Minjing, silently acting as a small follower. Entering the town quickly, Shishan Giant Ox looked around cautiously. After looking for a long time, he did not find anything wrong. He thought to himself, is this really a small town? There are no robbers who kill people and rob their goods? Qing Minjing was not as careful as Shishan Giant Ox. She went straight into a restaurant that looked more upscale. Shishan Giant Ox had no choice but to follow her in. As soon as they sat down, Qing Minjing quickly ordered some food and a few pots of hot water, and then quietly looked around. She found that there were not many people in the restaurant, but the atmosphere was not bad. Everyone was talking to each other, and the waiter was also busy with a smile on his face. Shishan Giant Ox also observed for a while and found nothing unusual. Taking advantage of the fact that the food had not been served, he called a waiter to inquire about the news. After the waiter came over, Shishan Giant Ox first picked up the cup of water on the table and drank it. He felt that his dry throat had been relieved a little. Then he put on a smile that he thought was very kind and asked, "Little brother, we father and daughter are both new to your honorable land, so we don't know much about the situation here. We want to find someone to ask, where is this place? Where is this place in the world of immortal cultivation?" The two of you do look unfamiliar. Are you bandits from the desert? The waiter who walked over was a young boy. He first glanced strangely at the ferocious-looking West Mountain giant bull, then looked at Qing Minjing, who was drinking water with a veil over her face. Then he took a step back with a vigilant expression and asked, "What's wrong?" Chapter 1398. What horse? What? When Shishan Giant Bull heard that he was regarded as a bad guy, he was about to slap the table angrily. But before he could finish, he was kicked hard by Qing Minjing under the table. "Little brother, don't listen to his nonsense. He and I are just ordinary friends. We are not father and daughter at all." After Qing Minjing kicked Shishan Giant Bull until he lost his voice, she slowly took off her veil and explained with a smile. "Oh, I see." The waiter stayed in this remote place on the edge of the desert all year round. When had he ever seen a beauty of Qing Minjing's level? He was immediately stunned, and his gaze at Qing Minjing was a little dull. Qing Minjing had long been used to this kind of gaze from others, so she didn't care. She stared at the waiter with a smile and continued, "We are really not from this town. We just came here with a few friends to play. Unexpectedly, there was a storm in the desert, so we got separated on the way. After we got lost, we came to this strange town, so I want to ask you about the situation here." Miss Hello. This town is called Moyao Town. It is a town on the edge of Baxian County. After a while, the waiter came back to his senses. He touched his nose in embarrassment and hurriedly introduced the restaurant. "Moyao Town? Baxian County?" Shishan Giant Bull repeated it subconsciously, feeling a little dumbfounded. Why is the name of this place completely different from the town he came from before? I have never heard of it before. In the past, I could only enter the world of immortal cultivation through teleportation. Why was I teleported to a completely different place this time? What is going on? Yes. The waiter was still looking at Qing Minjing in a daze. Hearing this, he nodded and added, "Because we're in the western part of the immortal cultivation world, there's only endless desert nearby. There's nothing to see at all, so very few people come here to sightsee. If there was any misunderstanding just now, please don't take it to heart. It's okay. It's mainly because my friend looks too much like a bad guy. It's not your fault. Cheng Minjing smiled and waved her hand. She rolled her eyes at Shishan Giant Bull and asked, "By the way, have you noticed any strangers appearing in Moyao Town recently?" Cheng Minjing deliberately ignores the lecherous expression of the waiter. Now she knows nothing about the environment in the world of cultivators. The most urgent thing for her is to meet with Xiao Chen and the others. She doesn't mind being stared at. In any case, he wouldn't lose a piece of flesh. As for the Shishan Giant Ox, it was drinking water gloomily at the side. Was it his fault that he looked like a bad guy? As the sect leader of the ghost cultivation sect, if he didn't look fierce, how could he hold the fort? No. The waiter frowned and recalled for a while. He shook his head and said, "Definitely no other strangers have been here." I see. Cheng Minjing lowered her eyes in disappointment. It seemed that Xiao Chen and the others hadn't been to this town. Otherwise, the waiter would definitely have an impression. However, she still didn't give up and asked again, "Is it possible that they went to another restaurant and didn't come here, so you don't know?" It's unlikely. The waiter said honestly, because our restaurant is one of the better ones in Moyao Town. The location is also not bad. So, usually when strangers come here they will choose to stay here. If we didn't find them, they probably won't be found in other places. Okay then. Cheng Minjing sighed and changed the topic. Then, I wonder who are the horse bandits that you mentioned just now? The waiter's body trembled slightly. He first looked around vigilantly, then he lowered his voice and said, "The horse bandits are the bandit organization in the desert. They often burn, kill and loot along the way in the surrounding towns. I heard that they even robbed a batch of goods from the Fan family a few days ago. The Fan family master was very angry. He said that he was gathering people to teach them a good lesson." What? I didn't expect this group of horse bandits to be so hateful. Cheng Minjing frowned and said with some dissatisfaction. She didn't expect that the immortal cultivation world was similar to the martial arts world. There were also people who relied on force to rob property and only wanted to reap without sowing. Shoo. The waiter was very nervous. He immediately put his finger in front of his lips and whispered, "Stop talking. Those horse bandits are very vengeful. They will take revenge for the smallest grievance. If they hear you, you will be in serious trouble." Shishan Giant Ox was relieved when he heard this. That's right. I said that the immortal cultivation world is full of danger. It's impossible for everything to be peaceful and beautiful. Look, I was right, wasn't I? Cheng Minjing didn't notice Shishan Giant Ox's expression at all. Instead, she wrinkled her nose disdainfully. However, she didn't ask any more questions. Instead, she asked, "The Fan family that you just mentioned sounds quite powerful. What do they do?" "Oh, the Fan family is a big family in our Moyao town. They are rich in supplies and often do business with merchants in the surrounding towns." Seeing that Cheng Minjing changed the topic, the waiter finally breathed a sigh of relief and continued to introduce, "I heard that they even have customers in Basian County. It seems that the goods that they were going to send out this time were robbed on the way to Basian County. Little Six, what are you doing? Come and help." Before the waiter finished speaking, the shopkeeper suddenly shouted. It turned out that he was asked to serve the dishes. "I'm coming." The waiter responded, then hurriedly added to Cheng Minjing, "If you want to find someone, you can go to the Dada Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce to try. Then I'll go and busy myself first." After that, the waiter left Cheng Minjing's table. He served the dishes they ordered attentively and then went to do other things. Dada Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce? What the hell is that? Shishan Giant Ox said to himself in surprise, "When I came to the immortal cultivation world last time, I didn't hear anyone mention it. Could it be that it just became popular recently?" Shishan Giant Ox pinched its chin and thought, but it felt that its brain was full of paste. It had no impression at all. AI, it seems that this immortal cultivation world is really not that simple. Shishan Giant Ox pinched its chin and thought, but it felt that its brain was full of paste. It had no impression at all. AI, it seems that this immortal cultivation world is really not that simple. Seeing that the waiter had served the dishes, Cheng Minjing smelled the fragrance, and her stomach immediately began to growl. She was not interested in continuing to ask. She quickly picked up the chopsticks and stuffed some vegetables into her mouth. She muttered vaguely, "Forget it, let's eat first. It's important to fill our stomachs. We'll go to the Chamber of Commerce later." Chapter 1399. Cheng Minjing had already given up hope on Shishan Giant Bull, who didn't know anything at all. She didn't know if it was true or not when it said that it had been to the cultivation world before. It seemed that it didn't know anything about what the waiter had said. Maybe it had made up the story about coming to the cultivation world. All right then. Shishan Giant Ox thought for a long time but could not find a clue, so it could only agree. Looking at the table full of fragrant dishes, it temporarily threw the matter of finding Xiao Qin to the back of its mind. By the way, don't ever say that we are father and daughter. Cheng Minjing didn't forget to complain to the giant bull while eating. I don't want to be your daughter. Besides, we look completely different. Who would believe that? Besides, you are old enough to be my grandfather. The giant bull remembered the nonsense it had said in a moment of desperation. It couldn't help but smile awkwardly. It didn't dare to refute. It picked up the chopsticks and gobbled up the food. After eating and drinking to its heart's content, the giant bull burped with satisfaction. It took out the bag containing the spiritual crystals and waved at the waiter, asking him to pay the bill. Are you two done eating? Are you satisfied with the food? The waiter immediately walked over and put 2 cups of tea on the table. He asked with a smile. Well, it's okay. Here is the bill. How much is the total spiritual crystals? The giant bull waved its hand lazily. It almost made a mistake. Okay, you have spent a total of 5 spiritual crystals. This is the bill. Please have a look. The waiter took out a receipt from his back, bowed and handed it to Shishan Giant Bull and reported with a smile. What did you say? 5 spiritual crystals? The Shishan Giant Bull, who was originally reclining, immediately sat up straight and asked with a surprised expression, It's just some ordinary food? Why does it cost 5 spirit crystals? The giant bull didn't have time to listen to the waiter's explanation. It immediately snatched the bill and looked down. It pointed at the item on the bill and scolded, What's wrong with you? We asked for 2 pots of hot water, and you charge 1 spiritual crystal for each pot? Is your restaurant a scam? Please calm down and listen to my explanation. The waiter wasn't angry. He still said with a smile, Both of you are from another place, so you might not know much about the situation here. Our Moyao town is just at the edge of the desert, so water is the most scarce. But isn't this a little too expensive? 1 pot of water costs 1 spirit crystal. I don't even have to spend so much to buy a pot. West Mountain Giant Cow grabbed the bill with one hand and pointed at the teapot on the table with the other. It shouted angrily. That can't be helped. You can go and ask around. In this town, no matter where you go, the price of water is the same. We definitely don't mean to cheat you. The waiter spread his hands helplessly. After all, there isn't enough water in our town. Most of it is transported from other places. The cost is already very high, which is why we are selling it at such a high price. Please understand. Then can't you give us a discount a little better? We just came from another place, so we don't know the situation here. 5 spirit crystals is indeed a little too much. Cheng Minjing was speechless after listening to the waiter. She begged pitifully. That being said, Cheng Minjing could still understand the difficulties of this restaurant. Water was originally more precious than gold in the desert. If the waiter really said that the water had to be transported from other places, then the transportation alone would cost a lot. After deducting the cost, there wouldn't be much profit. I can't make the decision for this. The waiter looked embarrassed. He couldn't bear to refuse Cheng Minjing's plea, but he couldn't help her to give a discount. After thinking for a long time, he gritted his teeth and said, How about this? I will help you ask our shopkeeper first. If he agrees, then we can give you a discount. That's great. Then I thank you in advance. You're so nice. Cheng Minjing immediately nodded with a smile. Her flower-like smile dazzled the waiter. He immediately patted his chest and guaranteed. Then he quickly ran away with the bill. Shishan Giant Bull and Cheng Minjing looked at the back of the waiter. They saw him run to the counter and find a middle-aged fat man. The two of them whispered to each other. The fat man seemed to be a little unwilling at first, and scolded the waiter with a displeased expression. However, the waiter didn't seem to give up, and still persistently tried to persuade him. He even pointed at Cheng Minjing's table and let the shopkeeper take a look. The shopkeeper glared at the waiter impatiently. Then he glanced at Cheng Minjing's table. However, when he saw Cheng Minjing's lovely appearance, his eyes suddenly flashed with a stunned light. He was stunned. Cheng Minjing immediately put on a pitiful expression. She cupped her hands at the shopkeeper. Then she quietly pointed to her own table, asking the shopkeeper to give her some face and give her some discount. The shopkeeper was stunned for a long time. The waiter kept nagging at the side. Finally he gritted his teeth and nodded. He said a few words to the waiter and then waved his hand to signal for him to settle it. However, the shopkeeper's own eyes didn't move away from Cheng Menjing's face. He kept admiring the beautiful and charming young miss. He looked for a long time until the back of the waiter blocked his view. Then, the shopkeeper reluctantly looked away and went to greet other customers. The waiter didn't notice the gaze of the shopkeeper behind him. Instead, he happily walked to Cheng Menjing's table and said with a smile, "Thanks to this lady's beauty, our shopkeeper is also a man who has tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. After my hard persuasion, he finally agreed to give you a discount of 1 spiritual crystal for the dishes. However, because the price of water is the same in the town, we can't give a discount. We will charge you 4 spiritual crystals." Thank you for saving us money, little brother." Cheng Menjing nodded happily. She was obviously very satisfied with the waiter's praise. She also complimented the waiter. Shishan Giant Bull was still holding the small bag tightly with a painful expression. It was as if he didn't hear the conversation between the two. "Why are you in a daze?" Cheng Menjing waited for a while and found that the Shishan Giant Bull didn't move at all. She couldn't help but urge, "Quickly pay the bill. We still have to go to the Dada Cultivation Chamber of Commerce and find a way to find someone." "Okay." The Shishan Giant Bull came back to its senses. It gritted its teeth and counted from the small bag for a long time. Then it took out 4 spiritual crystals and handed them to the waiter with trembling hands. Its burning eyes were still fixed on the spiritual crystals. Chapter 1400. Although its heart felt like it was being cut by a knife, West Mountain Giant Bull did not dare to eat without paying. The world of cultivators was full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers, and its strength was not high. It would not be good if it accidentally offended some big shot. "Okay, I'll charge you 4 crystals. Thank you for your patronage." After the waiter accepted the spirit crystals, he put them into the small pouch on his waist and pointed outside with a smile. The Dada Immortal Cultivators Chamber of Commerce is not far ahead. There is a large signboard hanging outside the door, so it's very easy to see. I hope you can find your lost companions as soon as possible. After pointing the way, the waiter cleaned up the empty dishes on the table, turned around and walked to the counter. West Mountain Giant Bull was still a little angry. When it saw the 2 cups of tea that the waiter had placed on the table when it was paying the bill, it took them with hatred and drank the 2 cups. The water here was so expensive. These 2 cups of tea should cost half a spirit crystal, right? It would be a waste not to drink them. Seeing the behavior of the giant bull, Cheng Menjing couldn't help but roll her eyes and complained in a low voice, "Aren't you too much of a loser? How much can these 2 cups of tea be? How can you be so calculative?" The giant bull sighed helplessly. "My lady, the crystals are not yours. Of course, you don't understand me." Before it finished its words, there was a sudden rush of horse hooves outside the door. It came from afar like a storm, and it was mixed with men's curses. Shishan Giant Bull and Cheng Menjing looked at each other in astonishment, then raised their heads to look outside. They saw a few masked men dressed in black galloping from not far away. In a flash, they flew past the outside of the restaurant, so fast that only a few shadows could be seen. Cheng Menjing was shocked. She looked over curiously and found that the men in black were galloping forward while looking back from time to time. Although their faces were covered, everyone's eyes were very fierce, as if they were vultures staring at their prey. However, at this time, there was a trace of seriousness in their eyes. Especially the leader, Cheng Menjing's sharp eyes saw that his body was still oozing blood, and his face was a little gloomy. It seemed that he was seriously injured. Following their gazes, Cheng Menjing did not see anything at first, but after a while, another group of people swarmed over. There were many of them and they looked mighty. Their bodies were all emitting waves of yuan qi. Cheng Menjing observed carefully and found that although these people looked ordinary, all of them were at the qi refining stage. The middle-aged man who was leading them was at the 7th level of the qi refining stage. Motherf ***, you actually dare to run? Your father must slaughter you today. Just as Cheng Menjing was observing with interest, the middle-aged man shouted at the group of people in front of him. Then he used his movement technique and quickly chased after them. Cheng Menjing was about to go out and see what was happening when she was suddenly pulled from behind. It turned out that the waiter had also heard the noise outside. He turned his head to look outside and his expression changed. He saw that the beauty was about to go out, so he quickly ran over and pulled Cheng Menjing back. "What's wrong? What's going on outside? Why are you pulling me back?" Cheng Menjing looked at the waiter with some surprise and asked. Shishan walked behind Cheng Menjing at this time and looked out in confusion. The waiter said nervously, "Miss, you'd better not go out for now. The Fan family servants are chasing the horse gang outside. Swords have no eyes. If you are accidentally injured by them, it will be troublesome." Shishan heard the waiter say this, and was shocked to the point of sucking in a breath of cold air. He quickly pulled Cheng Menjing back and cautiously said, "Don't forget what you promised me before. It's dangerous outside, don't go out." When Cheng Menjing heard the two of them say this, she could only helplessly stop her steps. Although she already had the strength of a peak nascent soul cultivator, and didn't care about the chi refining cultivators outside, she didn't want to be inexplicably involved in other people's disputes. It was better to wait for the chase outside to end before going out. Although her footsteps had stopped, Cheng Menjing was still very curious about what was happening outside, and continued to look outside. Whoosh! Suddenly there was a sound of wind breaking. Cheng Menjing saw clearly that the middle-aged man at the 7th level of the chi refining stage moved his fingers lightly, and a silver-white light shot out from between his fingers, directly piercing the leg of a horse gang in front of him. The horse let out a miserable neigh, and one of its legs slipped, causing it to lose its balance. The horse gang didn't have time to react and he fell to the ground with his horse. His whole body was crushed by the horse, and he was dizzy from the fall, unable to get up for a long time. "Hee, aren't you very capable? Are you very good at running? Let's see how you can run now." The middle-aged man sneered, and a trace of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes. He turned over and jumped off the horse, strode to the side of the man, and ridiculed him in a strange tone. After ridiculing him, the middle-aged man bent down, and reached out to pull out the silver-white weapon from the horse's leg. Cheng Menjing looked at the weapon and it was a strangely shaped dagger. Then he grabbed the man in black who was crushed by the horse, and used the dagger to firmly press against the man's neck. Brother Chen, quickly save me. I don't want to die. Help." Feeling the chill on his neck, the black-clothed horse gang's whole body went limp, and his trembling voice shouted to the person in front of him who was not far away. Hearing the tone of the horse gang, Cheng Menjing seemed to be quite young, and should have just joined the horse gang not too long ago. She couldn't help but secretly shake her head. Of all the things he could do, he had to become a bandit. Now he only knew fear after being caught. But to her surprise, the horse gang in front of her didn't abandon the captured horse gang, and instead chose to run away. Instead, they immediately pulled on the reins and turned their horses around to look back. At the same time, the Fan family servants who had been chasing finally rushed to the side of the horse gang. Seeing that these people had actually stopped running, they were immediately overjoyed and quickly surrounded them. "Oh, what's the matter? Is it because of brotherly affection that made people's blood boil?" The middle-aged man looked at the group of horse gang with a face full of ridicule, and sneered with disdain. The leader of the black-clothed man gritted his teeth, and endured the bursts of pain from his wound. He stared at the middle-aged man and coldly snorted, "If you want to kill us, then kill us. We will not yield. We are only staying here so that our brothers won't be lonely when they die." Chapter 1401. "Ah, you're just a bunch of lowly scoundrels who specialize in stealing chickens and dogs. Do you really think of yourselves as heroes?" The middle-aged man laughed impudently. He used his empty hand to pat the face of the mounted bandit in his hand and said with a smile, "Look, your brothers want to see you die. Don't you feel disheartened?" The mounted bandit's head was already covered in cold sweat. His tears and snot were mixed together, and his mouth was muttering something indiscernible. "Are you a man or not? Hurry up and do it. Don't be wishy-washy and say such nonsense." The black-clothed man frowned and said with dissatisfaction, "You can't wait to see your brothers die? All right, then I'll fulfill your wish." The middle-aged man looked at him mockingly. He then took off the mask of the mounted bandit in his hand and raised his eyebrows, saying, "Oh, I didn't expect you to be such a handsome young man. But it's a pity that your life ends here." A silver light suddenly flashed. The middle-aged man's sharp dagger quickly slashed across the neck of the young mounted bandit. He didn't leave any last words and was easily beheaded. With a schwa sound, fresh blood gushed out from the neck of the mounted bandit like a fountain. Then the corpse fell limply to the ground, staining the entire ground red. Putting away the silver dagger, the middle-aged man swaggered the severed head of the mounted bandit in his hand. He then took out a bag and threw it into the bag. Brothers, our Patriarch Fan has said that as long as we can capture these mounted bandits, whether they're dead or alive, each one will be worth 50 spirit crystals. The middle-aged man shouted proudly, "If any of you want to get rich, then hurry up and do it. After we get our reward, we'll be able to enjoy ourselves for a while. If we're too late, we might all be robbed." Good. Kill these scum. A few of the Fan family's consecrators were excited. They raised their arms and shouted. They all activated their mental cultivation methods and took out all kinds of magical instruments. They rushed toward the group of black-clothed men aggressively. The leader of the black-clothed men saw that the situation was not good and shouted, "Brothers, since they won't let us live, then let's not be merciful. Killing one is not a loss. Killing two is a gain. Let's kill them." At this moment, the other bandits around him also looked as if they were not afraid of death. With the mentality that they would perish together with the enemy, they instantly became entangled in battle with the Fan family's offerings. On one hand, their eyes were red with greed for wealth, and on the other hand, they were fighting with all their might to save their lives. The originally quiet street was suddenly filled with the sounds of killing, and broken limbs were flying everywhere. Many of the nearby merchants immediately closed their doors to avoid being caught in the crossfire. Looking at the blood-splattered battlefield, Cheng Minjing's stomach churned as she recalled the scene of the young mounted gangster being beheaded. She turned around and took a few deep breaths. She thought to herself, "These people are too disgusting. In order to kill mounted gangsters to earn some spiritual crystals, they have to cut off their heads. I don't know what's wrong with them." Killing mounted bandits to earn spiritual crystals? Thinking of this, Cheng Minjing's eyes suddenly lit up. She excitedly patted the Shishan giant bull and said excitedly, "Hey, killing mounted bandits can earn so much money. Why don't we go kill them as well? Those mounted bandits seem quite weak. I think you can easily take care of them." "You're crazy. What are you thinking? That's too dangerous. Don't you see that they are all cultivators? And many of them are around the 4th or 5th level of the Qi refinement stage. How can they be so easy to kill?" The Shishan giant bull flatly rejected Cheng Minjing's suggestion. Seeing her unconvinced expression, it pointed to a place not far away and said, "If you don't believe me, look over there." Cheng Minjing glanced in the direction that the Shishan giant bull was pointing. Coincidentally, one of the Fan family's consecrators made a mistake and was directly hit in the head by another mounted bandit with a magical weapon. His whole body was sent flying and red and white matter splattered in the air. When he landed, he was already dead. "Diske, I didn't expect you to be so timid. You're not willing to do anything. If you're like this, how can we earn spiritual crystals?" Cheng Minjing rolled her eyes and scolded him. If it weren't for the fact that she was afraid of being stained with blood, which would make it difficult to wash her dirty clothes, and also because she didn't want to reveal her true strength in front of the Shishan giant bull, Cheng Minjing would have already rushed out and killed all the mounted bandits and harvested their heads for spiritual crystals. "I say, madam, this matter is not as simple as you think it is." The Shishan giant bull sighed and explained patiently, "Even if I have the ability to do it, the Fan family's consecrators will never agree. When that time comes, not only will I not earn any spiritual crystals, but I will also be hunted down by them. I will not do such a thankless thing." In fact, the Shishan giant bull was not a fool. It was obvious that the Fan family had come to kill the mounted bandits for spiritual crystals. How could they let the money that was already in their hands fall into someone else's pocket? If such a person really appeared, he was definitely here to steal. From the Shishan giant bull's point of view, human nature was inherently greedy. Rather than being hunted down for a few dozen spiritual crystals, it was better to protect itself. Cheng Minjing pouted and finally stopped talking. Although she really wanted to earn some spiritual crystals to live, she also understood what it meant to be a sinister person. If the Fan family bore a grudge against her, she would not be able to bear the consequences. Looking at the killing outside, the Shishan giant bull shook its head and urged in a low voice, "Let's hurry up and leave. We can leave from the back door. After we go to the Deda Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce and settle the matter of finding someone, we should find a place to work. It will be less dangerous." Cheng Minjing had no choice but to ask the waiter for directions to the back door. Then she nodded at him to say goodbye and quietly left the restaurant with the Shishan giant bull through the back door. After slipping out of the restaurant, the Shishan giant bull recalled the 4 spiritual crystals that he had just taken out. It felt as if its heart was dripping blood. It was so King unlucky to be transported to such a broken place. Not to mention killing and looting on the streets, even a bottle of water was so expensive. It seemed like it had to find a way to get some spiritual crystals as soon as possible. Otherwise, it would not even be able to afford water, let alone food. Sooner or later, it would die of thirst here. I wonder if that restaurant is still hiring new employees? Should I go back and ask? Cheng Minjing did not think too much about it. After coming out from the back door, she walked around for a long time. When the movement in front of her disappeared, she directly walked forward. The Shishan giant bull could only carefully follow behind her. Chapter 1402. When they arrived at the street in front of the restaurant, Cheng Minjing looked over and found that a group of people had already finished fighting. The Fan family's consecrator had probably cleaned up all the mounted gangsters. There were no more scenes of fighting on the street except for some people cleaning up the mess. The West Mountain giant bull let out a sigh of relief. Cheng Minjing raised her head and observed the signboards of the roadside shops. She found that the Dada Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce was just about 100 meters in front of them, so she quickly walked over there. Miss Ching only wanted to find Xiao Qin and the others as soon as possible. As for other things, she could only adapt to the situation. When they arrived at the entrance of the Dada Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce, the two of them found that it was completely unaffected by the commotion just now. It was still crowded and seemed to be very lively. Although the two of them were a little surprised, they still directly walked in. After taking 2 steps, the West Mountain giant bull suddenly saw a recruitment notice hanging on the wall. It immediately read it and said with a surprised expression, "Eh? I didn't expect that this Chamber of Commerce, in addition to helping to find people, is actually recruiting cultivators to work. How about we earn some spirit crystals here first? That way we won't even be able to pay for water." The West Mountain giant cow was quite interested in working to earn spirit crystals. If it could find a less dangerous job here, it wouldn't be as risky as killing the mounted gangsters. It would also be good if it could earn enough money to feed itself. Otherwise, it wouldn't know when it would run out of spirit crystals. Cheng Minjing also went over to take a look. Then, she looked around at the simple and crude office environment and frowned. She always felt that this Dada Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce was a bit like a shell company in the secular world. It was very unreliable. I don't think this place is reliable. Seeing that the West Mountain giant bull was still eagerly waiting for her reply, Cheng Minjing shook her head in disapproval and said with a face full of suspicion, "Do you think they are swindlers? They want us to pay some clothing fees or management fees, and then run away with the spirit crystals. Or they want us to work for free for a period of time and then not pay us wages. There's such a thing? Isn't this an empty deal?" Shishan Giant Ox doesn't know much about the secular world. It is stunned by the deception mentioned by Cheng Minjing. "Isn't that so? Look at this rundown place. How does it look like a high-end company? I think this Chamber of Commerce is a little dangerous." Cheng Minjing curled her lips and snorted. "What you said sounds reasonable." Shishan nodded in agreement. He rubbed his chin and thought for a while before saying, "Then wait here for a while, I'll go ask someone." As soon as he finished speaking, Shishan Junyo turned around and strolled around the hall. He found a man who was standing on the side looking at the notice and pretended to casually ask, "Brother, may I ask what this Dada Immortal Cultivators Chamber of Commerce does? The name sounds a little strange. Could it be a scammer?" When Cheng Minjing heard Shishan Junyo's question, she almost laughed out loud. This guy is too honest. He actually asked so bluntly. What if he is a staff member of the Chamber of Commerce? Aren't you scolding a bald donkey in front of a monk? Fortunately, the man seems to be a passerby. When he heard Shishan Junyo's question, although he looked at her strangely, he still shook his head and replied, "How is that possible? The Immortal Cultivators Chamber of Commerce is a super chamber of commerce in all the major counties of the cultivation world. Not only do they have many members, but they also have a good reputation. I heard that they have dealings with all the major sects and families. How could they be scammers? That's strange." Shishan Junyo scratched his head and muttered in confusion, "When I came here a few years ago, I don't think I've seen this Chamber of Commerce. The scale is so big. Where did they come from? It seems that you came from a relatively remote town?" The man had an expression of sudden realization. He looked at Shishan Junyo and explained, "In the past, Dada Immortal Cultivators Chamber of Commerce only had branches in the counties. Recently they began to expand their business to some remote towns. I heard that they are determined to cover all the large and small counties. This is enough to see how powerful they are." Looking at Shishan Junyo's contemplative expression, some of the doubts that the man originally had disappeared. He secretly thought that this guy must have come from a remote and desolate place. Otherwise, he wouldn't have never heard of the Immortal Cultivators' Chamber of Commerce. He even suspected that they were scammers. After waiting for a while, seeing that Shishan Junyo had no intention of continuing to ask questions, the man was too lazy to say more. He turned around and busied himself with his own business. Shishan Junyo, since this place isn't a scammer, why don't we give it a try first? Cheng Minjing suggested. Anyway, there is no other feasible way at the moment. We can work in the Immortal Cultivators' Chamber of Commerce while asking people from the Chamber of Commerce to help us find Xiao Qian. Can be considered killing two birds with one stone. In fact, as the eldest daughter of the Cheng family, Cheng Minjing was not very willing to work for others. However, the current situation was unfavorable, so she could only endure it for the time being. Otherwise, when all the spirit crystals on Shishan Junyo were used up, their situation would probably be worse than now. Okay, then I'll go ask the staff over there first. Shishan Junyo nodded and walked to the counter. He randomly found a man in a uniform, cupped his hands and said, "Hello, I want to ask you to help me find a few companions. May I ask what the standard fee of your Chamber of Commerce is? Where did your companions go missing? How long have they been missing?" The staff didn't directly answer Shishan Junyo's question, but asked a question instead. They've been missing for a few days. I don't know the specific location, but it should be in the desert. Shishan Junyo thought about it and replied cautiously. Oh, if they go missing in the desert, then it's more difficult to find them. Moreover, if they've been missing for too long, our Chamber of Commerce may not be able to find them. The staff wasn't as nervous as Shishan Junyo. He answered smoothly, if you want to find a missing person, you need to ask the initiator to provide the physical appearance and characteristics of the missing person. The standard fee will also be divided into different levels. There are different levels? How is the specific fee calculated? Shishan Junyo was a little confused by the staff's set of words, so it asked subconsciously. The staff lowered his head and flipped through the manual, then reported in a clear tone, "It depends on how many employees you assign to help you find them. The usual standard is 10 spirit crystals per person per day. Of course, if you want to ask senior cultivators to help you find people, the fee will also increase exponentially because the efficiency will be higher." Chapter 1403. So expensive. I can't afford it. Hearing this amount, the bull was shocked. He couldn't even afford to eat and drink, let alone hire people to work for the Chamber of Commerce. How could he have extra money to spend on other things? Then there's nothing we can do. This is the standard fee of our Chamber of Commerce. It's the same in all counties, the staff member said expressionlessly as he spread out his hands. Shishan Giant Bull felt helpless, so it had to change the topic and asked, "Then if I want to apply for a job, how much is the pay for the job?" The staff first lowered his head and took a sip of tea carefully. Then he raised his head and said, "There are many types of jobs. Low-level workers can earn 7 or 8 crystals a day. Middle-level workers can earn dozens of crystals a day. As for high-level workers, it depends on how much they are willing to pay. Some of the more dangerous jobs can even earn hundreds of crystals at once." Then what are the contents of these jobs? How easy are the simple tasks? How dangerous are the dangerous tasks? Cheng Minjing came over and asked. When she heard the staff member's offer, she had an idea. If the conditions were right, it would be better to choose a job that could earn more money. Now she didn't even have the money to hire people. God knows what she would need to spend in the future. Alas, if I had known this would happen, I would have asked Jia Muzhen for some spirit crystals before coming here. Then I wouldn't be so poor now. You two are together? The staff looked at Cheng Minjing, who suddenly appeared, and then looked at the Shishan Giant Yak in confusion. Seeing the Shishan Giant Yak nod slightly, the staff then asked, "Then may I ask what is your cultivation level?" The jobs in the Chamber of Commerce are divided according to strength. Those with higher strength can handle more dangerous tasks, so they can naturally earn more spirit crystals. My external strength is the 3rd level of the Evil Master stage, and my internal strength is the 1st level of the Foundation Establishment stage. The bull raised his chin with a proud expression. It was obvious that he was very confident in his cultivation. My external strength is the peak of the Venerable Realm, and my internal strength is the 1st level of the Qi Refinement stage. Cheng Minjing hesitated for a moment and said cautiously. After coming to the world of cultivation, Qing Minjing learned from Shishan Giant Bull that the division of strength in the world of cultivation was very different from that in the internal martial arts world. If it was an ordinary martial cultivator or devil cultivator, they would basically have to start from the Qi refinement stage after coming to the immortal cultivation world, which was equivalent to starting from zero. Therefore, no matter how powerful a martial venerable or demon venerable was in the inner martial world, their cultivation level would usually be ignored after they entered the world of cultivators. This was because most people here only looked at one's inner strength, which was the strength of a cultivator. As for the third level of the evil sect mentioned by the giant bull, it was because the first time he entered the cultivation world, he had already broken through the ceiling of the venerable realm and reached a higher level. In the world of cultivation, the level above the venerable realm was unified as the martial arts sect, the devil sect, and the evil sect. The evil cultivators were hated by the martial arts world, but they had their own place in the world of cultivation. This was because these were external strength. No matter how powerful they were, they could not compete with the internal strength. Therefore, in the eyes of cultivators, martial cultivators, devil cultivators, and evil cultivators were all relatively low-level cultivators. They were not taken seriously by them. They paid more attention to the cultivation of their own inner strength. As for Qing Minjing, her strength was actually similar to Xiao Chen's. Before she entered the world of cultivation, she had already reached the peak of the original infant stage. Previously, she did not understand what Xiao Chen meant when he said that cultivators were more powerful than martial cultivators and devil cultivators. After listening to Shishan Giant Bull's explanation, she realized that she was the highest level cultivator in the legends. Although she was secretly happy, Qing Minjing still deliberately concealed her own inner strength. After all, she did not know much about Shishan Giant Bull. She did not intend to expose her true cultivation too early, lest she accidentally made a fool of herself. In addition, Qing Minjing also felt that if she wanted to work with Shishan Giant Bull, the difference in their strength should not be too big. Otherwise, if they were assigned to work in different places, it would be even more difficult for the two of them to contact each other. Although Qing Minjing did not like Shishan Giant Bull very much, under the current situation, the two of them could only work together. After they found Xiao Chen, they could think about the next thing. Well, your strength is not bad. You can barely do some intermediate tasks. The staff looked at Shishan Giant Bull and nodded. Then he turned his head to look at Qing Minjing and frowned. As for your level, it is a bit too low. You are only at the first level of Qi training. There is not much difference between you and an ordinary person. You can only do some simple mining work. You're a girl. I am afraid it is not very suitable. The little brother, Shishan Giant Bull, saw that the situation was not good and quickly smiled. She is my ahem. Without waiting for Shishan Giant Bull to finish speaking, Qing Minjing immediately cleared her throat and glared at him with a slightly threatening look. Oh, my granddaughter. The Shishan Giant Bull immediately recalled what Qing Minjing had said to him in the restaurant just now, and hurriedly changed his words and raised his status by another level. Only then did Qing Minjing let out a satisfied, The staff member was confused by the two people who were talking in riddles. He asked in surprise, So? She is relatively young. I have to take care of her safety. Shishan Giant Bull wiped his sweat and explained with a forced smile, If you can arrange for us to work together, that would be the best. Even if we get a lower salary, it is not a problem. Although his words were very humble, Shishan Giant Bull felt very unhappy in his heart. He was too unlucky. He actually met a little girl with such a low cultivation, and he had to give in to her for everything. He was really unlucky for 8 lifetimes. I see. The staff thought for a while and found a contract from the cabinet. He put it on the table and said while holding his chin, In that case, why don't you both get a salary? I happen to have a suitable job here. The specific content is written on the contract. You can take a look. If there is no problem, you can sign and mark it. Shishan Jinyunyu and Qing Minjing looked at each other. They thought that since the two of them were working together, it wouldn't make much of a difference if they got a share of the salary. They nodded and took the contract in front of them. The two of them read it carefully from beginning to end and found that the job marked in the contract was to work in a place called Ji Shop. The requirements for strength were relatively broad, ranging from the first level of the Qi refinement stage to the first level of the foundation establishment stage. However, the specific amount of salary was not specified. It was stated that the salary would be given according to the individual's strength. Chapter 1404. Seeing that the two of them were looking at the contract carefully, the staff added lightly, "Don't worry, this contract has already stated that different jobs will be arranged according to your level. If you don't have the corresponding strength or misreport your strength, causing the cooperation to fail and damaging the reputation of our Chamber of Commerce, then don't blame us for being impolite in the future." Qing Minjing found it refreshing and asked curiously, "Do you have any punishment measures?" "Of course," the staff said proudly. "If there is a breach of contract, our Immortal Chamber of Commerce will blacklist you directly. From now on, you are not allowed to participate in any business activities of the Immortal Chamber of Commerce. Even if you die in the line of duty, our Chamber of Commerce will not pay for any funeral expenses." This little brother is too serious. Of course we didn't make a false report. West Mountain Giant Cow was afraid that the staff would doubt it, so it quickly waved its hand to deny it. Then it pointed to a certain part at the end of the contract and humbly asked, "Oh right, I have a question. May I ask, what does the guarantor column here mean?" "Where?" The staff stretched out his head and glanced at it. He said, "That's what you need to fill out. It's to guarantee that there's no problem with your strength. If there's any mistake, you'll have to hold the guarantor accountable. If the hired workers are injured or killed because of the partner's mistake, the pension and funeral expenses will be sent to the guarantor." "Can I not fill in?" West Mountain Giant Cow asked with some difficulty. He and Qing Minjing had no relatives here, and he didn't know where his other partners were scattered. Who could he find to be a guarantor? Wasn't this making things difficult for him? "No, you have to fill it." The staff refused flatly and immediately added, "And this guarantor must be a relative. If there isn't one, you can't join our Immortal Chamber of Commerce." West Mountain Giant Cow was completely dumbfounded. "Why do I need relatives? I haven't contacted my relatives since 800 years ago. They have probably all turned into ashes. Where can I find them to be a guarantor? Could it be that my attempt to work in the Chamber of Commerce to make money is going to end before it even starts?" "Excuse me?" Just as Shishan Giant Bull was feeling depressed, Qing Minjing's voice suddenly sounded, "Excuse me, I'm his granddaughter, can I vouch for him?" "You." The staff sized up Qing Minjing with a hesitant look. "It's like this. Because we've just arrived here and our relatives and friends are all in our hometown, we can't find a suitable person to be our guarantor. However, we really want this job, so please be magnanimous and make an exception for us." Qing Minjing once again put on what she thought was the most pitiful expression and pleaded in a low voice. It had to be said that this tactic was time-tested. When the staff saw a great beauty blinking her big watery eyes at him and begging him in a low voice, he would be aroused to protect her no matter what. "All right then. Since you are only signing one contract, let this old man sign it and you can be his guarantor." The staff pondered for a while and finally made the decision under Qing Minjing's eager gaze. Good, thank you so much." Shishan Giant Bull was overjoyed. He immediately picked up the pen and signed his name on the contract. He was afraid that the staff would not let him sign it when he sobered up. Qing Minjing also picked up the pen on the table and carefully wrote her name in the guarantor column. After confirming that there was no mistake, she handed the contract to the staff. "All right, you two wait here for a while. I'll go and save the contract, then bring your employee certificates over. By the way, I'll arrange your next work." After checking the signature on the contract, the staff nodded, stood up, and walked into the inner room with the contract. Qing Minjing and Shishan Giant Bull breathed a sigh of relief and began to read the tasks posted around carefully. They wanted to see if there were any missing advertisements posted by Xiao Chen or others. They even asked some strangers around for information, but they still found nothing. Not long after, the staff came back with a token and greeted Qing Minjing and Shishan Giant Bull. Then he handed the token to Shishan Giant Bull and said, "Keep this token. This is your employee certificate in the Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce. If you lose it, you will have to pay a fee to replace it." Shishan Giant Ox quickly took the token, then held it in his hand and fiddled with it. He found that it was just an ordinary thing without the slightest aura. It should be prepared for the lowest level workers. Now go to the east street of Moyao Town immediately, find a shop called Ji Shop, and then go in and report to Butler Gao. The staff said unhurriedly, "As long as you show him your token and explain the situation, he will arrange a job for you." Shishan Giant Bull put away the token, nodded and asked, "Excuse me, what kind of work do we need to do?" "How do I know? When you get there you can ask Butler Gao. Won't you understand?" At this time the staff realized that he had been fooled by Qing Minjing, but he couldn't go back on his word, so he was in a bad mood. He waved his hand impatiently and said, Okay, if there's nothing else, you can go now. They are in a hurry to hire people. Don't dawdle here. Shishan Giant Bull's mouth twitched and he clenched his fists quietly. When he was in the inner martial arts world before, when had he ever suffered such vexation? However, Shishan Giant Bull also understood that his current situation was different, so although he was angry he could only nod obediently. After thanking the staff, he walked out of the Dada Cultivation Chamber of Commerce with Cheng Menjing. After going out of the door, Shishan Giant Bull remembered that he left in a hurry and forgot to ask the staff how to get to the East Street. Fortunately, the road had been cleaned at this time, and there were many pedestrians. He grabbed a passerby at random, asked for the location and hurried there with Cheng Menjing. After half an hour, Cheng Menjing and Shishan Giant Bull came to the Ji shop and informed the shop assistant, who greeted them warmly. After the shop assistant learned about it, he didn't dare to neglect and immediately ran to report to Butler Gao. They had nothing to do, so they wandered around the shop, thinking that they could learn about the working environment of this shop. Chapter 1405. Cheng Menjing looked around at the four walls of the shop and found that they were all hung with dazzling and strange-looking metals. She couldn't help but ask curiously, "West Mountain Giant Bull, do you know what these strange things are used for? Why have I never seen them before?" "I'm not too sure. Maybe they use them as spiritual artifacts. All the cultivators here have their own spiritual artifacts, which are very high-end." West Mountain Giant Bull studied for a long time and scratched its head uncertainly. Cheng Menjing secretly curled her lips and thought to herself, "You call it high-end just because you have a spiritual artifact? I can defeat all of them with my bare hands. This guy is too cowardly. He doesn't have the posture of a master at all." After walking for a while, Cheng Menjing began to think and guessed, "Do you think that the person sent us here means that we will be salesmen here in the future?" "That's possible." The West Mountain Giant Bull nodded in agreement. Then it frowned and muttered, "If I have to greet people with a smile all day and sell things, it's too painful. It's better to just kill me." "It's not a big deal. You'll get used to it." Cheng Menjing waved her hand casually and said, "Fortunately, I used to sell things like soy milk and youtiao in the morning market. I have some sales experience, so there won't be any problems." "What did you say?" West Mountain Giant Bull was stunned. "Did I hear it wrong? I didn't expect that Cheng Menjing, who usually looked like a rich girl, would actually go to sell breakfast?" This feeling of incongruity was too strong. "I said that I used to be a salesman, so I don't have stage fright. Why are you still deaf at your old age?" Cheng Menjing rolled her eyes at West Mountain Giant Bull. She couldn't bear to see it, so she added, "You don't have to panic. I'll protect you when the time comes." No, that's not what I meant." The Shishan Giant Ox could not help but laugh. It looked at Cheng Menjing and teased, "I was too surprised just now. You're a perfected venerable after all, yet you're reduced to selling those lousy things at the morning market? It was really unexpected." It seemed that the living conditions of the cultivators in the secular world were very difficult. "I have to rely on myself." "Go to hell, how can you say that?" When Cheng Menjing saw that not only was the Shishan Giant Bull not grateful to her, but it even dared to mock her, she glared at him hatefully and said, "This miss was forced to do that. If not for the fact that Xiao Chen and I were being hunted down by that bastard from the Kuei Mountain sect in the outer martial arts world, how could I have done those menial tasks? Who would be willing to suffer if they could have a good life?" "Ah, you're saying that exalted immortal Xiao went to sell youtiao with you?" The West Mountain Giant Bull was startled. It suspected that there was something wrong with its ears, so it asked subconsciously, "Isn't it that big bad guy who got separated from us after entering the portal?" Cheng Menjing snorted and muttered angrily, "This guy, he liked to order me around and make me do this and that. I haven't settled the score with him yet." Thinking of the difficult days when she had to wake up early to set up the stall, Cheng Menjing's face showed a look of reminiscence. To be honest, although it felt very hard, the days when she and Xiao Chen bickered and played around in her memory were quite worth recalling. The Shishan Giant Bull was very surprised at this time. It was not surprised that Xiao Chen would run to sell breakfast with Cheng Menjing, but why would a dignified cultivator be afraid of the head of a small sect in the outer martial arts world? And in its impression, Ma Wuxia from the Kuei Mountain sect should be the subordinate of Xing Gongzi, right? Xing Gongzi clearly had a close relationship with Xiao Chen. Was this Ma Wuxia crazy or brain damaged? Why would he go after the partner of his immediate superior? That. Miss Ching, I'm asking too much. What happened after that? Did Ma Wuxia find you? The Shishan giant bull was puzzled and asked tentatively. Oh, he found you. Qing Minjing nodded lightly. Ah, what happened after that? The Shishan giant bull was stunned and quickly asked. Why so many after that? Do you think you can sing? Qing Minjing rolled her eyes at it and curled her lips disapprovingly. Then he was commanded by Xiao Qin to perform a flying wuxia, and then he died. The Shishan giant bull felt even more strange. Exalted immortal Xiao could have killed Ma Wuxia, but he still wanted to escape. What was wrong with him? Could it be the exalted immortal's quirk? Could it be that Xing Gongzi was dissatisfied with exalted immortal Xiao and Qing Minjing being together, and was a little jealous so he sent people to kill him? But why did exalted immortal Xiao run? And when he saw the girls together, there didn't seem to be any estrangement. Then do you know that at that time, exalted immortal Xiao? The Shishan giant bull was about to ask a few more questions in detail when a rush of footsteps suddenly sounded, interrupting the latter half of his words. The two turned their heads and saw that the shop assistant who went to report had returned. Behind him was a slightly chubby middle-aged man. Are you two workers hired by the Deda Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce? The chubby man came in front of the two and looked at them expressionlessly. When he saw that one was an old man with a white beard and the other was a delicate girl, he couldn't help but frown. You must be Butler Gao, right? The Shishan giant bull nodded quickly, then grinned and put on a smile that was uglier than crying. He pointed to himself and said, I'm Shishan giant bull, this is Qing. However, before the Shishan giant bull finished introducing Qing Minjing, it was directly interrupted by the arrogant Butler Gao. Don't talk nonsense. I don't care what your names are. Hurry up and come with me. There are still a lot of work waiting for you in the backyard. After that, Butler Gao looked at the two of them up and down a few times. His round face was full of disdain. He turned around and left without looking back, muttering and complaining, What's wrong with that broken chamber of commerce? Didn't they ask them to find some coolies to do the work? Why can't they just hire anyone? It seems that I have to have a good talk with them next time. Butler Gao's voice was not loud, but it was just enough for the Shishan giant bull and Qing Minjing to hear. The Shishan giant bull's expression was a little distorted, but it also knew that it was not the time to talk back. It could only call Qing Minjing and follow behind Butler Gao obediently. As the two walked to the backyard, they were still a little puzzled. Shouldn't I be a salesman here? Could it be that I have other work to do? The two walked to the backyard with doubts in their hearts. When they saw the scene in front of them, they couldn't help but be completely shocked. Chapter 1406. Closest to Qing Minjing and Shishan Giant Cow was a group of ragged workers. They looked very old and weak. At this time, they were busy beside a few large pots that were emitting white smoke. From time to time, they used a special spoon to add materials into the pot, and then worked hard to stir the viscous liquid inside. Beside the large pots, there were piles of various metals. They were very similar to the things that were hung on the wall outside. They should be semi-finished products that had been made. Not far away there were a few tools for forging metals. Some young men with strong muscles were waving the hammers in their hands and making ha-ha sounds. They were forging the metals into various shapes. After the metals were forged, the young men handed them over to the female workers on the other side for polishing to make the metals look more lustrous and textured. The things that were produced by the hands of the hard-working female workers should be finished products. They looked exactly the same as the ones that Qing Minjing and the others saw in the shop before. Alright, this is where you'll be working. Before Shishan Giant Cow and Qing Minjing recovered from the scene in front of them, Butler Gao gave a concise order. Shishan Giant Cow looked at the bad working environment in front of it and once again had the urge to escape from the scene. What kind of broken place is this? Aren't they looking down on us too much? But just as this thought came to mind, Shishan Giant Bull helplessly suppressed it. He didn't have many spirit crystals left. If he really chose to escape and didn't work here, then if Butler Gao reported him to the Deda Immortal Cultivators Chamber of Commerce and blacklisted him, it would be even more difficult for him to work in the future. It couldn't join the horse gang to rob, right? Although it had done a lot of bad things when it was an evil cultivator, it simply burned, killed, and looted. The technical content was too low. Shishan Giant Cow was really not interested. Qing Minjing also had a look of disgust on her face. Originally, she thought that she was just a salesperson or something, standing in the store and selling things. Although it was a little tiring, at least she only needed to move her mouth. She never thought that she, a dignified young lady of a family, would actually be assigned to do hard labor here. Wasn't the difference a little too big? Looking at the female workers with messy hair and shabby clothes, Cheng Minjing could not imagine herself assimilating with them. That would be too horrible to look at. What is this? You go refine the raw materials with those old fellows? Butler Gao snorted angrily. He pointed at the Shishan giant bull and ordered. Then he turned to look at Cheng Minjing. You go and polish the metal with the female worker. Ask the workers here about the specific process. Alright, if there's anything else you don't understand, just ask. Shishan giant bull took a deep breath, calmed down and then asked, That? Steward Gao, I would like to ask, how do we calculate our wages? Also, do you provide food and accommodation here? Steward Gao thought for a while, then pointed at the two of them and said, Your salary is 1 crystal a day. Since you are a team of 2, you will only get 30 crystals a month. In addition, we will provide 2 meals a day, and someone will arrange a place for you to stay. It can't be? 1 crystal a day? Cheng Minjing's expression was a little dull. Did I hear it wrong? Yes. Steward Gao nodded naturally and added, The first 3 days of work are considered as a probation period. You can't get any crystals. If there's a problem during work which causes the raw materials to be destroyed or lost, you will also be punished according to the regulations. But it's only 30 crystals a month? Shishan Giant Bull couldn't help but complain and said with a long face, Before coming here, the staff of the Dada Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce told us that even the lowest level employee can earn 7 or 8 crystals a day. The wages you pay here are a little too low. Isn't it inappropriate? Shishan Giant Bull felt extremely bitter. After all, he was a master of a sect. He had the task of rebuking the inner martial arts world. Not only did he come here to work for someone, but the wages were so low. He was even worse than a beggar. Don't do it if you think it's low. You two are useless. You don't know anything. How dare you bargain with me? When Steward Gao heard their protest, he laughed disdainfully. His nostrils were almost raised to the sky. Then we should also do things according to the regulations, right? The Chamber of Commerce of Immortal Cultivation has a clear regulation. Shishan Giant Bull tried hard to argue, but he was interrupted by Steward Gao before he could finish speaking. You want to do things according to the rules, right? Let me tell you the rules. Steward Gao lowered his head and stared at Shishan Giant Bull fiercely. He counted with his fingers and said, You eat my food and live in my place. Do I have to deduct your food and accommodation fees? Also, the prerequisite for working here is that you have to deduct 500 crystals as a deposit. If you can pay it now, I can pay you 5 crystals a day. What do you think? You. Cheng Minjing was so angry that she raised her eyebrows and gritted her teeth. She couldn't wait to rush up and slap this damn fatty. However, just when she moved, Shishan Giant Bull immediately stopped in front of her. We agree. Let's do as you say. 1 crystal is 1 crystal. Before Cheng Minjing lost her temper, Shishan Giant Bull smiled and said to Steward Gao, If you have something to do, you can do it yourself. We are both very smart and this work is not difficult. It won't take long for us to learn it. Humph. Do smart people need to work here? Those who are not capable will be useless for a lifetime. They should accept their fate. Steward Gao rolled his eyes at Shishan Giant Bull. He turned around and said a few words to the supervisor. Then he swaggered away. Cheng Minjing first waved her small fist at Steward Gao's chubby back. Then she pushed Shishan Giant Bull heavily and scolded, Are you crazy? Look at what kind of a job you have found. How can you make me do this kind of rough work? It's not even as good as selling breakfast. After working hard for a month, I can only earn 30 crystals. What can we do with that? Shishan Giant Bull staggered after being pushed, but it didn't dare to push Steward Gao back. It comforted her helplessly, Actually, I think this job is quite good. They also provide food and accommodation, right? We don't have anywhere else to go. Let's just take it as finding a place to rest. Besides, with our abilities, where can we find a better job? I guess other places are like this too. Don't complain. Chapter 1407. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Please forgive me. Shishan Giant Cow was so scared that it shivered and apologized repeatedly. It was afraid that it would be kicked out by the supervisor and lose its job. Okay, I'll clean it up now. I promise I won't cause you any trouble. Shishan Giant Cow nodded repeatedly. Then it carried the burnt cauldron with a bitter face. It took the washing utensils that were handed to it and walked to the sink to wash it obediently. The scene was suddenly in chaos. and coughing sounds came one after another as people choked on the black smoke. Many quick-witted workers hurriedly carried buckets of water over and poured it into the cauldron desperately to extinguish the flames. Only then did they luckily stop the fire from happening. Hey, Shishan Giant Cow, did your brain get hit by a cannon? Who allowed you to add materials to the cauldron casually? You caused trouble on your first day here. Do you want to quit your job? While Shishan Giant Cow was secretly rejoicing, there was a sudden roar from not far away. It turned out to be from the supervisor at the scene. It didn't expect that it would cause such serious consequences just by adding some materials casually. Now Shishan Giant Cow could only rejoice that this scene was not seen by Butler Gao. Otherwise it would definitely be deducted spirit crystals. Thick black smoke mixed with fire instantly sprayed out from the cauldron. Several nearby workers who didn't have time to dodge were all shrouded in the black smoke. Fortunately, the supervisor did not pursue the matter further. He just shouted, "I want you to clean up the scene before dark. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." Cheng Menjing couldn't help but secretly rejoice that she reacted quickly and took a step back before the explosion. So, she wasn't injured by the explosion, but her whole body was blackened by the smoke. Cough, 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 it's on fire. Get a bucket over here. Don't mess around. You can't put this material in now. An old man who was busy on the other side saw this scene and quickly ran over to stop it. However, it was too late to stop it. After the Shishan Giant Yak added the black liquid to the sticky substance in the pot, the temperature gradually rose and became hotter and hotter. The surface of the sticky substance kept bubbling, and the whole pot shook back and forth, looking extremely unstable. Seeing that the situation was not good, the old man who was originally running forward immediately retreated. Cheng Menjing also noticed that something was wrong and quietly took a step back. Only Shishan Yo didn't feel anything and still stuck its head over to see what had happened to the pot. "I can't see where the pot is. Forget it, I'll just splash it in the darkest place." Cough, cough. "Big sister, do you want to find a place to wash up?" Just as Cheng Menjing was worrying, a young female voice suddenly came from behind her. At the same time that the Shishan Giant Bull stretched its head over, the sticky substance in the cauldron finally could not withstand the high temperature and directly exploded. "Good your ass. Which eye of yours thinks that this job is good? The spirit crystals we earn here in a month is not even as much as the people who kill a horse gang." Cheng Menjing shouted angrily. Cheng Menjing turned around and saw that it was a girl who was 1 or 2 years younger than her. She was wearing extremely simple clothes and was blinking her big eyes and looking at her sincerely. Bang! As soon as the voice fell, Shishan Giant Bull picked up what looked like a custom-made spoon and scooped some unknown black liquid from the wooden bucket on the side. Then it poured it directly into the pot in front of it. Because she was wearing a veil at this time, her white cheeks were clearly divided into 2 parts. The part above the tip of her nose that was exposed was completely black, and her lips and chin still maintained their original white appearance. Shishan Giant Bull made a bitter face and didn't say anything. It thought to itself, "People who kill horse gangs are all people with strength. You are just a chi refinement stage cultivator, how dare you say this? I'm afraid that before you reach the door of the horse gang's stronghold, you will be shot into a sieve by the soldiers." Shishan Giant Bull tried to comfort her, but in its heart, it was muttering, "This girl looks soft and weak, but I didn't expect her to be so strong. It seems that she is destined to do rough work." If it weren't for the fact that Shishan Giant Bull's chest was still slightly moving up and down, others would even think that he had been burnt to a crisp by the fire. What's going on? Who did such a stupid thing? Cough, cough, cough. Cheng Menjing refused to give up. She strode to the side of a big pot that was emitting white smoke, pointed at it and said angrily, "Look at this yourself, what kind of rubbish is this? I guess with your brain, you may not be able to learn it even if you study for 3 days and 3 nights. Just now you actually patted your chest and agreed so loudly. Why don't you throw yourself in and stir it? What's so difficult about it? Why don't I think so?" Shishan Giant Bull also walked over, looked down at the big pot and said matter-of-factly, "Isn't it just pouring things in and stirring it casually? Look, I'll give you a demonstration." Cough, I realize that you are already so old, how can you still be so reckless? Cheng Menjing, who took a step back, coughed twice, took off her black veil and took a big breath of fresh air. She didn't forget to complain, "Don't touch things that you shouldn't touch. You haven't even started to learn and you put things in a mess. You almost blew me up." Shishan Giant Bull, who was closest to the big pot, was in a state of confusion. It had been standing there in its original posture, motionless. Its originally clean clothes were now black, and its hair was completely wet because of the splashed water, and it kept dripping water. Cheng Minjing looked down at her black and sooty appearance. She also wanted to wash her face and change into suitable clothes for work. But looking around, most of the backyard had been occupied as a place for quenching materials. Except for a few broken wooden huts scattered in the distance, there was no other place to freshen up. Cheng Minjing couldn't help but frown gloomily. After a long time, the black smoke gradually began to dissipate, and the true appearance of the accident scene was gradually revealed. Cough cough cough. Shishan Giant Bull spat out a few mouthfuls of black gas. It mumbled a few words and finally lowered its head. It was so ashamed that it didn't know what to say. Until all the black smoke dissipated, Shishan Giant Bull finally breathed a sigh of relief. The spoon in its hand fell to the ground with a clang, and it didn't feel anything when it hit its toe. Chapter 1408. Yes, but I don't think there's a suitable place to wash up here. I'm worried. Cheng Minjing didn't feel any malice from the little girl, so she nodded. My room is closer to here. It's quite convenient to walk there. If you don't mind, why don't I take you to my place to wash up? The little girl smiled brightly and pointed to a place not far away. Then, all right, thank you in advance. Cheng Minjing hesitated for a while and nodded. She followed the little girl and walked to a small wooden house nearby. Because it was still in the backyard, Cheng Minjing didn't have much vigilance. As they walked, she chatted with the little girl. May I ask, what's your name? Oh, my name is Xiaoyu, the moon of the moon. What's your name, sister? Xiaoyu immediately introduced herself and asked Cheng Minjing. My name is Cheng Yaoyao. Today I also came here with my grandfather, Shishan Giant Ox. I didn't expect him to make a mistake and cause trouble for everyone. I'm really sorry. Cheng Minjing smiled bitterly and shook her head. It's okay. In fact, when I first came here to work, I was also clumsy. At that time, I even got scolded by Butler Gao because I polished a material wrong. That guy is so fierce. Xiaoyu stuck out her tongue cutely and said mischievously. Cheng Minjing looked at her for a few times and found that the little girl's eyebrows were still a little immature. She hadn't fully grown, but she could already see that she was quite pretty. Although she wasn't the kind that could cause the downfall of a city, she still belonged to the type that came from a humble family. When she grew up, she would definitely be a beauty. However, this little girl's body seemed very thin, and her spine was slightly curved. Although her hands were slender, her skin was quite rough. At first glance, it was obvious that she had worked a lot and didn't have enough nutrition. That was why she developed so late. Xiaoyu, how long have you been working here? Cheng Minjing sized him up and asked curiously, You don't look very old. Why are you doing this kind of rough work? According to the laws of the secular world, Xiaoya could be regarded as underage child labor. If she was discovered, she would definitely be fined. It's a long story. Those who choose to do this kind of hard labor, which one of them isn't from a poor family? Hearing Cheng Minjing's question, Xiaoya's eyes turned red as if she had recalled her sad past. However, she muttered to herself, But I don't want to live like this for the rest of my life. I will find a way to leave one day no matter what price I have to pay. Xiaoya's voice was too soft for Cheng Minjing to hear clearly. She couldn't help asking, What did you just say? It's nothing. Xiaoya forced a smile at Cheng Minjing, and then pushed open a door in front of her. This is it. Go in and change your clothes. I'll go get some water for you to wash. Thank you, Xiaoya. Cheng Minjing couldn't stand her dirty appearance, so she didn't refuse. She thanked her and walked in. After entering the room, Cheng Minjing looked at the surrounding environment and found that the room looked relatively dilapidated. The furniture inside was extremely simple. Except for a bed, a table, daily necessities, and a mirror, there was nothing else. No wonder Xiaoya was so at ease to let strangers in. Although it looked very dilapidated, there was no dust in the entire room. It looked relatively clean. The cleanest thing was the mirror. It seemed that even though Xiaoya did such hard work every day, she still maintained the characteristics of a girl. She loved cleanliness and liked to look in the mirror and feel sorry for herself. With a slight sigh, Cheng Minjing put aside the thoughts in her mind and took off her dirty clothes. Then she opened her luggage and chose a relatively simple dress to wear. After wearing it, Cheng Minjing looked at her face in front of the mirror. She found that her nose, eyelids, and forehead were all dark stains, but her lips and chin were the same as before. It was like a Zorro wearing a mask. Not long after, someone knocked on the door gently. After waiting for Cheng Minjing to respond, the door was opened again. Xiaoya entered the door with a basin of water and placed it on the table. Then she looked at Qing Menjing with a smile and said, "Sister Yao, hurry up and wash it. We have to get things done quickly and go back to work. Otherwise, the supervisor will scold us again." "And okay." Qing Menjing nodded and immediately walked over. She bent down and quickly washed the stains on her face. Fortunately, the black dust was originally stuck to her face, so it was easier to wash. So, after a little rubbing, it fell off, and the clear water in the basin suddenly turned black. While waiting for Qing Menjing to finish washing her face, Xiaoya picked up the dirty clothes on the side and put them in a large basin in the corner. It seemed to be used for washing clothes. Standing up, Xiaoya turned around and walked back. Her eyes inadvertently swept across Qing Menjing's luggage and couldn't help but exclaim, "Wow! Sister Yao, your clothes are so beautiful." Xiaoya felt that the clothes in the luggage seemed to have magic, attracting her step by step. She didn't forget to say enviously, "Sister Yao, where did you buy your clothes? I've never seen such beautiful clothes in any of the clothing stores in our town. Even the most expensive treasures can't compare to them. You must have been a rich lady in the past, right?" Walking to the front of the luggage, Xiaoya looked down at the exquisite and beautiful clothes. She didn't dare to touch them, and her pupils were shining with envy. "It's nothing. If you like it, I can give you one." At this time, Qing Menjing had already wiped her face clean. She picked up a high-end custom-made dress bought in the secular world and stuffed it into Xiaoya's hands. In fact, after entering the inner Wuling, Qing Menjing rarely wore the clothes of the secular world. She still felt that ancient robes were more comfortable and they looked quite sage-like. The most important thing was that they could cover her small chest, so she hadn't touched those clothes of the secular world for a long time. "Really?" Xiaoya looked at the clothes in her hands with surprise and joy. Suddenly she came to her senses and quickly handed the clothes back. "No, Sister Yao, these clothes are too expensive. I can't accept them." Although she said so, Xiaoya's eyes were still fixed on the clothes in her hands, as if it was good to look at them a few more times. Chapter 1409. "It's nothing. Just take it." Qing Menjing pushed the clothes back and said with a smile, "I was so dirty just now. It was you who took the initiative to bring me back to change clothes and wash up. I haven't had the chance to thank you yet. You have helped me so much. Just take this as my thank you gift." "Well, thank you so much, Sister Yao." Xiaoya hesitated for a while and finally accepted the clothes. Then she happily took it in front of the mirror and compared it with her own figure. She found that it fit quite well, and the smile on her face couldn't help but become brighter. After a while, Xiaoya remembered that Yao Yao was still waiting for her. She quickly turned her head and smiled happily, "Sister Yao, you are so good to me. I don't even know what to... What's wrong? Is there still something on my face that hasn't been washed clean?" Looking at Xiaoya staring at herself, the smile on her face gradually froze. Qing Menjing was a little surprised and touched her own face. Then she moved closer to the mirror and carefully looked at it a few times, but she couldn't see anything different. No. Hearing Qing Menjing's question, Xiaoya suddenly woke up and quickly shook her head. "I just think... Sister Yao, you look very good. Ah, you little girl, your mouth is really sweet. Do you want me to give you some clothes?" Hearing someone praise her, Qing Menjing was naturally very happy, but she still teased her with a smile. Yes, I really look good." Xiaoya stamped her feet and suddenly thought of something. She bit her lower lip shyly and said softly, "Actually, Sister Yao, you are so good that you don't need to come to this kind of place to work. If you are willing. Forget it, it's nothing. Let's hurry up and do our work. Let me teach you how to grind those metals in the most convenient way." Xiaoya's voice was low, so Qing Menjing was careless and didn't hear what she was saying. She thought that Xiaoya thought she was beautiful and her clothes were beautiful, so she couldn't help but laugh. She felt a trace of pity for this tender little girl. At the same age, when she was living a luxurious life, some people came out to work because their families were poor. The clothes that she threw aside were all envious. Looking at Xiaoya, who was skipping out of the room, Qing Menjing secretly made a decision. "Anyway, I probably won't be staying here for too long. Before I leave, I'll give all the clothes in the secular world to Xiaoya. Anyway, I'll just leave them here and they'll take up space. It was better to give it to someone who needed it the most." In the following period of time, the two of them were led by different people to learn the work they had to do. After a busy day, Qing Menjing and Shishan Giant Yak were covered in dirt and grime. Their expressions were also very dejected. Although the content of their work was relatively simple, as long as they remembered the proportion of each quenching material, compared with their previous life, the feeling of difference was too big, so both of them felt particularly depressed. That night, the two were assigned to a small shabby house. The environment inside was similar to Xiaoya's room. Because the two only received one salary, it was obvious that they only lived in one room. After Cheng Minjing entered the door, she immediately blocked the door and ordered Shishan Giant Yak not to come in. She found a place to stay. After all, men and women should not touch each other. Other than Xiao Qin, Cheng Minjing could not accept sleeping with other men in the same room, even if she knew that the old man would not dare to do anything excessive to her. Although Shishan Giant Yak felt aggrieved, it could also understand Cheng Minjing's vigilance. She was immortal Zhao's woman, so it was natural for her to have some privileges. Thinking of this, it did not intend to argue and slept on the stone slab outside the door. In the following days, the two repeatedly did the same work, mechanically and monotonously. At first, Cheng Minjing was a little emotional, but later she accepted her fate. Every day she went out early and came back late. Not only was she exhausted, but from time to time she was also looked down by butler Gao, who came to inspect her. In Cheng Minjing's opinion, selling youtiao in the morning market was better than this job. There was Xiao Chen to take care of the overall situation, and she only needed to move her lips. But working here was not only boring, but before she finished her work at night and took a shower, she was always covered in dust, and even her face could not be seen clearly. Every night when it was quiet, Cheng Minjing would stare at the empty ceiling. She was very upset. She came to the world of immortal cultivation to find out the whereabouts of her uncle, Cheng Zhongqian. In the end, even Xiao Chen and the others were lost. Now she was reduced to working in such a shabby place. She was really unlucky. Cheng Minjing's only interest now was to be able to chat with Xiaoya. However, the two of them only chatted casually and did not get to know each other deeply. This was because Cheng Minjing always felt that she could leave at any time, and did not want to be reluctant to part when the time came. And in the process of chatting, Cheng Minjing always felt that Xiaoya's character was a little strange. She seemed to like to talk about some irrelevant things, often fantasizing about getting rich overnight and then escaping from her current difficult life. Although Cheng Minjing had reservations about Xiaoya's unrealistic fantasies, she did not say it directly. After all, this was her own values. Even if she did not agree with it, she was in no position to change it. On this day, Cheng Minjing came to the backyard early in the morning to prepare the materials for work. However, after a while, she found that Xiaoya had not come. After lunch, she still did not see Xiaoya. At first, Cheng Minjing thought that Xiaoya was sick, so she hurriedly ran to her room to visit her. However, as soon as she opened the door, Cheng Minjing was a little dumbfounded. She saw that the originally very simple room was empty at this time. Except for the heavy furniture, all the daily necessities had disappeared, including the clothes that Cheng Minjing had given to Xiaoya. Originally, Xiaoya had carefully hung them on the side of the wardrobe. At this time they had also disappeared. The whole room was clean as if no one had ever lived here. Seeing this scene, Cheng Minjing could not help but be puzzled. Did Xiaoya leave? Or did she change her residence? Cheng Minjing, who was puzzled, took advantage of the free time in the afternoon to find an older old man to ask about the situation. "Hello, uncle. I want to ask, have you seen Xiaoya these days?" In Cheng Minjing's impression, Xiaoya seemed to go to talk to this old man often these days, so she guessed that the other party might know something. Chapter 14:10. Little you? The old man stopped what he was doing and thought for a while with his white eyebrows furrowed. He suddenly realized something and said, "Oh, you mean that little girl? I heard that she found a way to get to know the youngest son of a family in town and became their concubine." "What? Become a concubine?" Cheng Minjing thought that she had heard wrongly and confirmed again, "You mean she became someone's concubine? Isn't that so?" The old man shook his head and sighed helplessly. How could a young and pretty girl like her be willing to do this kind of hard labor? In the past, many poor young women who came to work couldn't resist the temptation of glory and wealth and ran to become someone's concubine. I don't know what happened to them in the end. No? No way? Little you is actually a vain person? Why didn't I notice? Cheng Minjing muttered to herself in shock and felt that she couldn't accept it. Although she had often heard Xiaoya complain about the unfairness of fate, Cheng Minjing had always thought that she was just fond of fantasizing and was relatively naive. She did not expect that she would actually leave so suddenly without even saying goodbye. She disappeared without a trace. Why not? The old man glanced at Cheng Minjing and said faintly, "A few days ago she kept asking me about the rich children in town. I knew that she couldn't continue to suffer and it was only a matter of time before she left here." After that, the old man couldn't be bothered with the dumbfounded Cheng Minjing anymore and turned to do his own work. Cheng Minjing felt as if she had been struck by lightning and was completely speechless. She also admitted that the extravagant world outside was indeed a great temptation for a young girl who had not yet matured. However, if she were to stand in her own shoes, she would never marry someone she didn't know about just because of money or power. What was the difference between that and selling her body? What's more, little Yu was marrying into the family as a concubine. This was even more unacceptable to Cheng Minjing. "Oh, great Aunt Cheng, looking at you, don't tell me you're also tempted?" West Mountain Giant Bull happened to pass by at this time. Looking at Cheng Minjing's thoughtful expression, it carried the wooden bucket with the quenching materials and teased with an evil smile, "Why don't you learn from that little you and marry a random rich man? Then on your wedding night I'll sneak in at night and help you knock him out. Then we'll get all the spirit crystals out of his house. That way we won't have to do hard labor anymore. What do you think?" Hearing Shishan Giant Bull's suggestion, Cheng Minjing couldn't help but get angry. She simply gave him a hard kick, stared at him with her hands on her hips and scolded, "Go to hell. You might as well become someone's concubine, and then I'll think of a way to rescue you." Thinking about all these nonsense all day long, aren't you ashamed? Hurry up and get back to work. Ouch. West Mountain Giant Bull was caught off guard and was kicked. It suddenly felt a pain in its calf and lost its center of gravity and fell to the side. The wooden bucket in its hand tilted slightly, and some of the quenching materials inside just happened to leak out and drip into another wooden bucket with other materials. But at this time, West Mountain Giant Bull was trying hard to maintain its center of gravity and didn't notice anything strange at all. Cheng Minjing didn't notice this situation either. She just snorted and prepared to go back to her workplace. "Hey old bull, the raw materials in these pots are almost quenched. You can add that bucket of starlight oil." The old man who was chatting with Cheng Minjing just finished checking all the pots and turned around to instruct West Mountain Giant Bull. Okay, I'm coming." West Mountain Giant Bull quickly agreed, then put down the wooden bucket in its hand, picked up another wooden bucket with starlight oil on the ground and ran over. Slow down, pay attention to the dosage, don't blow it up like last time." The old man looked at West Mountain Giant Bull trotting all the way and couldn't help but exhort. West Mountain Giant Bull carefully poured the starlight oil into each pot and proudly showed off, "Old Zhang, don't worry. I'm a skilled worker now, how can I make such a low-level mistake? It's better to be safe than sorry." The old man called Old Zhang grinned and said with a smile, "After all, these are dangerous materials if you're not careful." Mr. Zhang's words were stuck in his throat. Just now, he inadvertently glanced at the pot and felt that something was wrong. He suddenly looked down and found that the ingredients in the pot were constantly changing color. His face immediately sank and he said sternly, "The color is wrong. What did you put in it? Don't tell me you mixed up the other materials? How is that possible?" West Mountain Giant Bull was stunned and flatly denied it. It picked up the wooden bucket and argued, "I clearly put in starlight oil. If you don't believe me, you can see for yourself, there are still some left here." After that, Shishan Giant Ox handed over the barrel. Old Zhang looked into the barrel and found that there was some yellowish-brown material left at the bottom. It was indeed celestial rainbow oil, but if you look closely, you can still find some purple viscous material floating on it. "That's not right, look at the purple stuff, obviously there are other materials mixed in." Old Zhang saw the problem at a glance, pointed to the purple stuff and said, "Hey, this isn't me." West Mountain Giant Bull discovered this situation, and its expression was a little surprised. It was about to say that it didn't do it, but Old Zhang happened to look up at the big pots. His face suddenly changed and he shouted, "Everyone run. These materials are going to explode. Hurry up and find a safe place to hide." After that, Old Zhang didn't care to listen to West Mountain Giant Bull's explanation. He took the lead and fled the scene. The other laborers nearby were also shocked when they heard this. They quickly put down the work in their hands and hid in the wooden house not far away. Looking at the 5 or 6 big pots in front of it emitting strange purple smoke, West Mountain Giant Bull was alarmed. It immediately called Cheng Minjing, who was not far away, and quickly fled in the direction of the wooden house. Although it didn't know how powerful the explosion old Zhang said was, West Mountain Giant Bull could feel that the problem this time must be very serious. Maybe the entire backyard would be destroyed. Boom. Sure enough, shortly after West Mountain Giant Bull and Cheng Minjing hid in the small wooden house, the big pots in the middle of the yard made a loud noise at the same time. The purple sticky liquid inside instantly erupted into the air, like a beautiful and strange fountain. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.